Okay. And hello, welcome to the May video chat with fans. This is just going to be the normal answering questions about whatever, separate from the campaign stuff mostly because I try to get those. I'm trying to separate those two. Hopefully eventually I'll stop having so many announcements I need to merge things. Hope so many announcements I need to separate things, but so yeah, this is all just going to be random questions, probably nothing important in here, so yeah, if you were here for the campaign stuff, you can leave. It's if you want. Okay, for announcements, I'm scrambling to get back to regular Game Dungeon stuff, but even then, it's a big episode, so I'm not promising a new video on Game Dungeon this month, but my guess is it'll be early June for the next Game Dungeon, but it's my guess. My hands have been full with everything I'm working on. So, but again, I said before I was prepared to burn some of my audience doing this campaign thing, but we're through the worst of it. I swear, the past month, it feels like I'm perpetually like 2 to 4 days out of work on the campaign, and then like, okay, now I can go back to the just Game Dutch other videos and just kind of not have to do so much. And it's just like things keep popping up that like I need to really respond to, otherwise I wouldn't be kind of maximizing our odds, which is what I'm doing. So yes, sorry it's delaying the regular videos, but I really am through the worst of it. So that's something. Yeah, okay, so I'll just go to, oops, I forgot to open up the questions. I will start answering the random questions, but yeah, that's pretty much it for announcements. Oh, well, no, I guess there is another one. I guess, shoot, I should have mentioned this on the last video. The person who made those, was it Jake Does It Again? Who made those like 90s style fake commercials? Apparently he's made even more of them, and I'll have a playlist for those. I'll probably put them in the description of the last video. So let's see. Oh yeah, okay, so I should get more, yeah, open up the questions. Although I think I remember the first one. Let's see. All right, yeah, here we go. Oh yeah, I took some notes on this one. Okay, so the first question. What's the coolest line in any video game has ever spoken? Well, I had to think. My personal favorite might be the one I put in the Begathon video, which was about from Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines about what it was about the cut rate party clown. Like it was just supposed to be until Evelyn left, but you got back on your feet after Evelyn left you. Here it is, like thousands of scotches later, and you've managed to keep this gig going without one repeat customer. But however, that one was not spoken. That was just read. So I had to think about like, oh, what's the coolest line I've seen spoken? And I had to think back. What I remember, like back in college, I think it was Craig actually. Voice of Dave in Civil Protection. He was saying, "Oh, I'm having trouble." Yeah, he was having trouble how to start this essay. He couldn't think of a good way to write it. So just without missing a beat, I said they were all dead. The final gunshot was an exclamation mark to everything that had led to this point. I released my finger from the trigger, and then it was over. To make any kind of sense of it, I needed to go back 3 years, back to the night the pain started. So I figured that one still holds up really well. Like if you just need, I was thinking, I don't think that helped his essay much, but I was thinking if you just want lines to start off something, those might be the best I've seen from a video game. Like they were all dead. The final gunshot was an exclamation mark. So I think that might be my vote, but I had a couple others. I still love that one from Deus Ex Invisible War about like what I have no enemies, just topographies of ignorance. I love that line. This one I forgot the exact words. I was too lazy to hunt it down, but from Beneath a Steel Sky, there's one part where you're talking to your robot, and he's saying something like, "Why don't you just kill him, Robert?" Like, and he's saying like, "Hey, what about the 3 laws of robotics?" You know, referencing Asimov, and the robot says, "Those are just words, Robert. Like, you know, that just some guy wrote. Those don't mean anything." You know? I love that. I have not played Beyond the Steel Sky yet, but I want to. I played like a couple minutes. It's definitely on my to play list. What was the other one? Okay, that might be what I have. I guess, does the chat have any suggestions while I'm trying to see if I can remember any others? Oh, that's good. Somebody's saying, "Tell my wife I had another wife dies." I haven't played Saints Row 4. Let's see. Oh yeah, Serious Sam. Oh man, it's loaded. Yeah. Oh, that was one of my favorites. When you get the Tommy gun, it's like, "Now you'll dance to my tune." Like, Serious Sam's so loaded with good one-liners. Like the whole series. Yeah, coolest quote or coolest line any video game has ever spoken. But yeah, yeah. Somebody was mentioning. Well, they mentioned the wife. I had another wife from Saints Row 4. That reminded me. It's Serious Sam. The next encounter, he's saying, yeah, he says something like, "This place looks like Vegas." It's like, "I met my first wife in Vegas. It's a shame what happened to her." And then no more reference. To believe in an ideal is to be willing to betray it. Okay, that's the Old Republic too. Okay. Don't write me off until you watch me die face to face. I don't know. I guess you might need the context. Well, one I was thinking was, I'm thinking, what was it? Space Marine, Warhammer 40K. There's some, you know, if, I probably won't get around to it, but if I was, there's one scene where like you're fighting this big orc boss, and then he's, you know, shouting, "I'm not done with you yet." And then I was gonna pause the video and say something like, you know, "I hope you understand there's only one way he can respond to this." And then resume and says, "But I am done with you, orc." You know, and then it kills him. So, I think there was another scene like that in the original Dawn of War ending, you know, where I just remember, I forgot what was said, but like in the finale scene, I remember thinking there is only one way that the character can respond to this line, you know, so. Looks like Mr. Glanet's a Star Wars fan. Looks like all of his quotes are from Star Wars related games. Yeah, let's see. Okay, well, yeah, and more Star Wars quotes. Well, that was, I think that was Harrison Ford. Like one of the best lines of Star Wars was Harrison Ford ad-libbing when what Leia says, like, "I love you," and it just says, "I know." I think that wasn't in the script. I think that was Harrison Ford. So, at least I remember hearing that. I'm not sure. All right, so I guess let's see. Oh, well, yeah, I guess that one's really haunted me. Somebody's saying, "Oh, an alien spaceship." Now it's all starting to make sense. More later. Yeah, yeah, from Mabus. I forgot how to pronounce it. So. Okay, that's enough quotes. I'll go to more questions. Well, this one should be quick. What's your hair care routine like? I never know if people are trolling me on this or not. They're saying, I use shampoo. That's pretty much it. I mean, so. I mean, I do try to. I've noticed it looks a lot worse if I'm if it's recently, I've found the magic number before I appear on camera is to wait about 4 hours after taking a shower. So I try to time it like that when I can. Uh, four or more hours, then it looks better. So I don't have a blow dryer, so it's 4 hours. Though probably less now that it's getting to be summer. It feels, yeah, I know it's May, but it feels like summer in here. Oh yeah, this one. If you were given an option to get one game you currently can't afford or just want to wait for a sale on for free, which one would you pick? Yeah, I mean, most of my problem now is just having more time to play the games that I have. I mean, there's, like I just mentioned earlier, Beyond the Steel Sky is on the list. There's plenty. But yeah, I guess for new ones, I mean, I was gonna say most games. It's not a matter of me not being able to afford it. It's just, I can't just. I've been just a cheapskate on games for my whole life. It's just like I have all these internal mechanisms that won't let me pay full price for a game, at least for myself. I have bought more expensive ones as gifts to people who wanted them. But yeah, so I was thinking for price, I was gonna say the exception would be, what was it? Wasn't there some scandal going on with, was it Escape from Tarkov, about they were charging $250 for in like the PvE mode or something? I was thinking, yeah, okay, that one's price. That one, it starts bleeding into that, like, I can't afford this territory. Or yeah, I guess the other one, it's not really one game exactly, but a lot of the train simulators, they'll have like thousands of dollars worth of DLC. And I wouldn't want all that DLC, except, like, really this. I'm not that interested in train simulators, like, as far as the gameplay. However, I want to get them working. I want to get a lot of them working in stereoscopic, so I can play them in VR and just kind of have like a sightseeing tour. So I would want the DLC that gives additional tracks. So yeah, I wouldn't care about additional trains or anything like that, but that, this one is in the Pacific Northwest, and like this one is in Italy, and like, so stuff like that. I would want that, and that could get pretty expensive buying all those, from my understanding. I'm sort of slowly going through there. I've only been doing Microsoft Train Simulator in stereoscopic so far, off and on. That one's pretty old, so I'll eventually get to the pricier ones, I guess. But yeah, just for normal games, I'm not even sure, because the way I buy and play games, it's like so disconnected from like what the brand new price is. Because if I see a brand new game that I'm interested in, I put it on the list, and then I kind of don't even pay much attention to it, usually for years, or unless it like pops up on like some big sale. So I pretty much do almost all my game buying when there are big sales, and just stockpile and then just never touch them. I mean, or just never buy new ones in between. I just kind of go through the stockpile in between then. So if it's not showing up at a price I would consider, then it just tends to get knocked down. Okay, so for ones I know are a little pricier, Callisto Protocol, I think that one's still pretty much full price. I'm interested in that one. Was it? This is an online only one, which certainly makes me hesitate more, but I am interested in it. New World. And even then, I know I'm probably not going to love the gameplay in New World, but I really, from what I've seen, I really like that theme and setting. The sort of European colonial fantasy setting. That's what drew me to Greedfall too, which is another game I need to finish. But yeah, see, that's why I've been doing this giant campaign, is because eventually there's going to be games I do care about, so. But yeah, I guess I can't think of any like recent AAA games that I'm that interested in, though, because usually it's like the theme that drags me. I still need to play Cyberpunk 2077. That's pretty, but I have a copy of that, so that's pretty close to the top of the list for me for AAA stuff. Because for the non AAA stuff, those probably are gonna hit the same like price levels as like the. So maybe people can. Oh yeah, what was it? Last Epic. I'm interested in that one. That was another like action RPG. I'm just trying to think of other. See, I don't know what's the priciest on my games to play list. And if it's like a really mainstream game, then I usually don't put it on the games list because, like a new Need for Speed game or something. Like, yeah, I'm not going to forget about that because there's like a million Need for Speed games. Let's see. What are some. Yeah, maybe the chat has well, okay, so like AAA games from now or like a year ago, that are still high priced. Because usually after 2 years or more, they gradually start dropping in price. But like I think this one is reduced price now. But I'm interested in playing State of Decay too. I played the original; it was pretty decent. Like I'm kind of interested in Dying Light, but not that interested. So Dying Light 2. So that's one where I would probably wait till it's like pretty cheap to try out, or geez, at the rate things go, but Epic might give it away for free a few years from now. Let's see. I'm trying to think of some other ones. Yeah, yes, I do know I can get free games on the Epic Store and elsewhere. I check it like, yeah, I think, was it Dragon Age Inquisition is free right now? Or let's see. But yeah, I guess if I had to decide quick, it'd probably be New World or Callisto Protocol because those are both still pricey. And I'm definitely interested in both of those. But yeah, I have my own system, and brand new prices just don't even factor into it. I already treat new games pretty much as late betas anyway, so I'm playing stuff on a lag almost permanently now. Okay. Does Microsoft qualify as an evil company for what they just did to the software houses Arcane Austin, Tango Gameworks, Alpha Dog Games, and Roundhouse? I don't know if that would go for evil because that's like normal business. That's what you should expect from companies that have mergers. I guess I would say yes if they explicitly told all the employees, don't worry, you're going to be here a long time. Because some companies have done that, and then like next week they're laying off everybody. So yeah, if they did that, so they're straight up lying to them so people can make plans based on that and then pulling the carpet out from under them, then yes. Otherwise, I'd say that's not enough. I bet somebody watching this can make a better argument for why Microsoft is evil. Microsoft is one of those where I feel like, I feel like they've probably broken the law, especially more in the past, like in the 90s when they were kind of coming up. Like they would put code in there. A lot of their stuff tends to be like antitrust stuff where, they're bleeding into monopoly. So I don't know if that really qualifies as evil so much as I kind of see Microsoft myself as kind of holding back progress for like how they're with their monopoly influence. Like I mentioned with the GUI, if we had things more open, I think it would lead to like, look, if we had like real open standards for a GUI where you could customize it to almost anything you want, I think that would lead to more efficiency for anyone who uses a computer, for almost anyone who uses a computer, like across all humanity. Because, you might be getting your work done 5% faster. For some people, twice as fast, And collectively, that sort of thing adds up. And I see them doing that with other things. Or I also think stuff like Game Pass is like a Trojan horse. Or yeah, Microsoft is like the reason. Yeah, like that article I mentioned in the follow-up, how Microsoft is basically the reason the IRS got defunded. And see that kind of can go. You can make an argument that's a good or a bad thing, but it kind of solidifies more corporate control over government. And it's like, well, I don't know if that's evil exactly, but it's like you're increasing the odds of like life getting harder for various reasons for a lot of people. That's one of those things where it's not necessarily like a direct connection. It's more like if you do this, then over time things are worse on this timeline than they would be on this one. That's kind of how I look at it. Let's see. Someone's saying they think buying companies to close them a couple years later is explicitly evil. It's so. I mean, I don't know. It's pretty well known, though. I mean, it's kind of like, I guess for it to rise to the level of evil, like you need to like demonstrably show the harm that, and like the harm has to be at such a level that like, yeah, this is just flat out immoral. See, the thing is, for laying people off, the problem is you're bleeding into larger concerns and questions so rapidly, but when you look at it through that lens, because like, okay, the people who work there, they need this job to support themselves. And then once they're laid off, that makes things precarious for them. However, that's like almost every business. So it kind of leans into the question, like we need we need a better system, period. Like the business itself is operating as it's designed to maximize profit. I mean, or a publicly traded company. So, I mean, depending on what they do, that can be evil, or other times it's just sort of, I guess, cold and calculated, and that's their job. So it's more like this is a bad system to have like people's livelihoods and survival dependent on. That's kind of what you get into. So it's kind of short-sighted, in my opinion, just look at the company for doing that. But again, there could be so many skeletons in Microsoft's closet I just don't even know about. Like I bet you could get some like old school people who've been around a while and know more explicitly what they've done all along the way, that they could probably give an answer that rises to the level of evil. My perception of Microsoft, again, is they're kind of holding back progress on a lot of things. And they've done some shady and illegal stuff in the past where, like, I think, in the old days, I think they had code that like would make Word perfect run poorly because they were competing with it at the time, and then stuff for Word was put in there. But there were some other shady things in there. I'm drawing a blank on it. They're better videos than this sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, Microsoft, for me, they just kind of create a lot of problems for me that I don't like. And kind of, like, the biggest thing I dislike, besides the monopoly influence of Microsoft, is trying to intertwine, like, the OS and the store and games so they're all interconnected, and you kind of can't run the store independently, or things on the store independently of what your OS is like. And having mandatory updates and trying to like shove ads through that. So, or just changes that might cause problems for you. So if you just want a system that doesn't change, on a whim, you have to jump through so many hoops, and it kind of makes you more like a second-class citizen, depending on how you use Windows. So. Yeah, see, somebody's making a better point. Mr. Glantz making a better point about Boeing having a better argument for them being evil. Yeah, especially once you get to like defense contractors. I'm sure there's plenty of skeletons in the closet there, but yeah, it's for me, evil. The harm needs to be much more deliberate, I guess, and rise to a certain level. And everything I see with Microsoft that I know of is just kind of problematic for humanity. Not, but it doesn't quite rise to evil the way I understand it, unless I'm drawing a blank on something. So, uh, oh yeah, this one was hard. I still don't have a great answer. For you personally, who is one of the characters you can relate to the most in any video game? I was thinking in personality, I'm not sure I was able to come up with anyone. Uh, However, for objectives, the Shaper from Path of Exile, like we both want much of the same thing, because he's there out to just explore all these different worlds and their multiverse, whatever. And like I'm thinking, yeah, that's kind of where I am too, except his personality is different than mine, and also he's obsessed with perfection, and that's not on my list. So I'm not even sure what that would mean with shaping. Uh, let's see. Somebody's saying promotion. Okay, that sounds like that sounds like block-worthy stuff there. If you're spamming the chat for some promote, I mean, if you were saying like, oh, yeah, if you're talking yeah, okay, that's just garbage then. Yeah, so the Shaper, he's sort of a villain in the game, or anti-hero, I guess, that where his whole backstory is in Path of Exile, you can open up portals to other worlds, and he became obsessed with that, and it started changing him, and he stirred up a lot of trouble with it. I was thinking, yeah, that's what I'm about at my core. I want to travel to fantastic worlds. So it's, if you want to, if you've never played the game and you want like just an exposure of what I'm talking about, look up Atlas of Worlds trailer. That's it does it justice. It does. So. But yeah, for personality, I was thinking like it would want like a character that's, kind of like, because I have a kind of a mix of traits that I haven't really seen that like, oh yeah, I'm completely on board with this character that like that I feel is like me. Well, I guess I could. Well, I could relate. I guess the question was it like me that I can relate to? Well, I could relate to some to Joey in Arcade America. Where he's just tired, but he's hustling. Has a sense of humor about it. Yeah, okay. He's come up a few times, but man, I like the character Joey. Because I don't share all the traits, but yeah, I could relate to him. He's like that. Like he's giving things his full hustle, but it's awkward. It's kind of goofy, and he looks tired. Yeah, so maybe Joey. I don't know until I get somebody better. But I was gonna say a character that's like kind of cynical, but has a sense of humor, but not in like this, not like this over the top way that you usually see in games or movies, and but can be extremely determined and strategical about things if they need to be, but aren't overly serious and kind of anti-drama. And I don't know, I was struggling to think of characters, but yeah, no, I could relate to Joey. So, all right. Okay, well, I'll answer this since I saw in the chat. What's up with you always starting these streams with your eyes bulging slightly as though you just woken up? I mean, I don't know. It's my general mannerisms. Some of it though, I learned this a few months back. I'm definitely guilty of millennial pause, where once you start recording, there's like this kind of hang time where you're not sure, where it's just a developed habit where you're not 100% sure if it has actually begun recording, because it might need like a second or two to buffer before it's actually going. So it's kind of a learned habit to kind of wait for that, whereas apparently younger generations don't do that. They have more faith, and it just starts recording immediately. I mean, it's Well, even on Twitch, when I hit streaming, I think I did one experiment where I just started counting as soon as I pressed stream, and I asked people to tell me what number I was on once they saw the stream, and it was up to 6. I think was about the number. So it was like I was 1, 2, 3, and so from when I hit stream to when people saw it, we 1 through 5 was not there. So but yeah, that look from me is basically me just kind of triple checking in my mind everything is set up properly. That like, okay, like I'm checking to make sure it does say recording. So, yeah, it's probably millennial pause in my case. But okay, some more questions. Well, okay, I guess for other characters I can kind of relate to. I mean, a little bit to Kane from the Legacy of Kane series, but I'm not as serious as he is, and has a little bit of megalomania going on with him, and like he's pretty humorless, Kane, but like, he's thinking things through a lot, or he's trying to plan through things a lot, and I can relate to that. Where he's trying to adapt to these situations, and he's very goal oriented, and I am too. So I can relate to him a little bit, and he's. I guess the other thing is he's also he has a certain dismissiveness of things that aren't his problem, and I have some of that in me also. I mean, not to like the degree Kane does, but it depends on the problem. Because if it's like people genuinely in pain and needing help, that's different. But if it's just like some drama between other characters, like that just goes right past me on a lot of things where I just I just move past it. So he also has an arrogance, but I don't think I really relate to that part of it, and because he acts like a noble in the series because he is nobility. So I definitely don't have that. I would be much lower class than Kane, but I can relate to his focus on goals and trying to think through everything and responding to like these kind of complex situations, and him kind of being on the back foot of things, because the game starts off, he's been murdered and come back from the dead, and he's trying to figure out how to proceed with this. So yeah, I can relate to just not being sure of your path forward and trying your best to adjust as things come at you. So let's see. So I was saying Kane and Blood Omen 2 were a bit insufferable. I liked them in Blood Omen 2. But it's been a while since I played it, and that is 100% a game I'm going to replay in VR, in stereoscopic, because that game has a good mood to it. And like that's one, and my memory's kind of hazy on it now, so I'd love to replay that. All right. What has been your dumbest or most useless purchase in recent memory? Well, I'm usually pretty good about trying to avoid that, though I think one that popped to mind that might qualify is several months back, I guess last year, I went down a rabbit hole of kind of setting up a custom keyboard with like its own switches and caps and stuff, and I was able to get what I wanted with kind of a minimum of purchases, but it's the sort of thing where I didn't know exactly what I wanted. And so I tried to get like these like little switch sampler packs. So like, because it feels different when you press on the keyboard. Like I wanted a keyboard that felt nice to type on, but that wasn't like overly loud, that was like clickety clack, clack, click, click, click. So I'm very happy with how it turned out, but I think as far as like the most useless purchase, this is the sort of thing where I would have rented them if I could, but I couldn't. So in addition to like the keyboard switches, I never would have thought this, but the covers on top of the keys, called the keycaps, they actually can have a pretty noticeable difference with how it feels to type on something. Like, I never would have thought this. I would have thought that just affects the texture and that's it. But no, they can be like a little heavier or lighter, so it can be kind of more. Some can kind of feel more like you're kind of mushy or slogging through, and others it just flows along. So I was trying to figure out like which keycaps feel better. And yeah, here you see my half busted kind of thing. See, these are different ones. Like this is a different one. These are different, and these are different. This was like left over from what I gutted it through. So I have all these leftover keycaps I don't really want that I'm probably not going to use again, but I needed them in order to figure out that's not what I wanted. So it's very nice now though. So, yeah, so yeah, it was a little bit wasteful, but I'm glad I did it. It's like the nicest keyboard I've ever typed on now. So you share your keycaps with your wife. Well, she's not sure what she wants either. I sometimes, if she likes any of them, I will. So somebody's saying 70% keyboard is rough. No, it's full. It's a full keyboard. Was it Keychron one? So yeah, where you can hot swap and take out the switches and stuff. And the real annoying part was I put the switches in, but there would be like this ringing to them, like like when you typed on them. It was like kind of subtle, but it drove me crazy. So I had to take apart all the switches and lube the springs for them and then put them back in. And then all the guides online, yeah, 99% of the guides online are crap, where they say, oh, be sure to use the exact amount of lube on it. No, you should go overkill on it, because I did it once and then that helped, but it still didn't get rid of the sound. So then there was like one post of this guy that was saying like double or triple the amount you should use. Everybody else did, and he was right. So yeah, I don't. Some people get really obsessive about this. I just wanted it to like feel nice and not be like super loud, and it's mostly mission accomplished on that. Yeah, if people want to know what I'm using, I forget the name of the keyboard. It's a Keychron one though, and the switches, the nicest ones I tried were Zelios Xylent. I think there were the 62 gram ones. If you want one that's not, they have a springy feel to them, which I like. So it's almost like a little bit rubbery, but like bouncy, and I like how it feels. So. And the keycaps, I'm undecided between Keychron OSA or what, MOA, MOA. Those are both feel pretty nice. So yeah, see, somebody's saying brown. Those are the Cherry MX brown ones. Where yeah, that's if you don't want to deal with the custom crap, which I completely understand. This is the sort of thing where I don't understand why at least one manufacturer doesn't just sell them pre-made so that people don't have to deal with all this crap. So, but yeah, I wanted one that was not super loud and felt nice to type on, and it's now the nicest keyboard I've ever typed on. So it was a pain in the ass setting it up, but there was payoff. So that's all right. More questions. If you could selectively wipe all your existing memories about a particular piece of media so that you could experience it again as if it were the very first time, which ones would you choose? Oh, I thought it was game at first. I didn't realize it was movie or TV show or book. Well, I mean, I'd rather just kind of move on to new stuff I haven't seen, but I guess for games, I was thinking probably either like Deus Ex or Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Those are both like just fantastic game experiences for my taste. Let's see. But somebody's saying the keyboard sounds really satisfying. Well, I don't know if you'll pick it up on this mic here. Here, I'll hold it up and kind of. Like so there is some sound to it, so it's not like ultimate super quiet, but the ultimate super quiet ones were like they felt kind of mushy, which I didn't like as much, and they almost didn't feel that much different than just a cheap membrane keyboard. So it's like, well, what's the point then? Just use a cheap one, you know. Let's see. So yeah, you can get them even more quiet, but they may not feel as nice. So it's kind of going in between. And I'm someone who used to have like an IBM Model M that I got at a thrift store, and that one felt great to type on, but that thing was loud, like you know. So let's see. Do you have a felt pad under the keys? Well, no, but the one, geez, okay. I'm trying to see which keychron I have on there, but the keychron I have is what? It comes with some dampening stuff kind of built into it, so like on the inside it has like this rubber mat directly underneath the keys. But okay. Ooh, that's a good answer. Somebody's saying memory wipe playing Half-Life 2. Yeah, that might be. Yeah, actually, that would have been the obvious answer I hadn't thought of, because it's not. That's not my all-time favorite game, but I've been just so overexposed to that it would be nice having it be fresher again for me. So, yeah, that's a good point. Well, for movie, I mean, there's lots of good ones, but I heard who is it? Paul Morgan Stetler, you know, the voice of Curtis in Phantasmagoria 2. Well, actually, Phantasmagoria 2 would be pretty good. I don't really miss the gameplay of Phantasmagoria 2, but that was a pretty amazing game. Well, he went in blind to see Raiders of the Lost Ark, not knowing anything about it. I was thinking, oh man, that must have been great to see that, just having no idea what to expect, and then just you get Raiders of the Lost Ark, because that's one of my all-time favorite movies. I really enjoyed the Dawn of the Dead remake also. That like I was just grinning ear to ear when I watched that movie. Yeah, well, I could go on forever with movies on it, but yeah, I think for me, Deus Ex I like Supreme Commander a lot too, but I'm thinking for the ones that the ones. See, with Castlevania Symphony of the Night, the gameplay is great. The story is almost like it's like B-level movie that you can make fun of, but the atmosphere is utterly fantastic. So it's like, you know, I've kind of had that. I may have mentioned this before. I kind of had that attitude about games. It doesn't apply to all of them, where you need something to sell it on, and it's usually like a trifecta of like gameplay, story, and atmosphere. And if you have like two of those, then it's going to be pretty good experience, I think. Or not necessarily though. If like just the gameplay is really good, but we're talking just like not good graphic, that can still be very engrossing if just the gameplay is good. But yeah, those are kind of the three things I look for. Like, I mean, I guess Deus Ex kind of had all three, in my opinion. I mean, some of the visual atmosphere isn't the best, but some of it is good, and the music is amazing in Deus Ex. So it has very good gameplay, very good story, and very good atmosphere. So, and Symphony of the Night has very good atmosphere and very good gameplay, and a story that's amusing. So, you know. Well, I really remember liking the original Resident Evil 2. I mean, I like all the early Resident Evil games, but Resident Evil 2, I remember being my favorite. So maybe I'll get some of that when I eventually play the remake. I'm trying to think of games that like really just kind of wowed me. Well, Subnautica is really good, and I enjoyed They Are Billions a lot. Though They Are Billions, it's kind of minimal on the story. It's mostly just the gameplay. Would you wipe your memory to forget a game that had been killed? Probably not, because then it would sting even more that I missed out on it. So, because like, I mean, The Secret World, that one was pretty amazing. It's flawed but amazing, and that one's at risk. So, yeah, I think I'd prefer to not wipe my mind at all. In fact, I had a civil protection episode idea on this. Maybe I'll get to that eventually. But all right. Have you received any hate or criticism concerning the campaign? Yeah, I have some. Not a lot, but probably more criticisms than hate. I think for hate, I only got 2. And in both cases, the people were just, they seemed like it started off normal enough, but then after 1 or 2 email exchanges, it went to kind of psycho territory pretty fast. Like one guy, like I think they were just kind of mentally unstable in both cases, so I don't want to go into too many details. But one guy, I'm to this day, I'm still not sure of like what his argument was, but he gave like lots of counterpoints. I tried to give responses to those, and then he would ignore my counterpoints, and then just go to insults and bring the new counterpoints, and it just kind of escalated. So I was thinking, but like his overarching insult, well, not insult, but his overarching criticism seemed to be that because some people act poorly to developers, that the fact that I wasn't scolding everyone for that meant that I was a terrible person. That seemed to be the logic. I'm just thinking like, this is like a separate dimension or axis than anything that I'm doing is on, you know? So like, I mean, well, nowhere in the campaign have I advocated harassing developers on this. I mean, even Ubisoft. And even Ubisoft, they're just the target of convenience. I mean, this could, if the openings were there, this could be EA or Blizzard Activision or what? If Take-Two have shutdowns or so they're just there. And then the other guy set up. This one might have been a grift. I'm not sure, but he set up kind of a GoFundMe to collect money for the campaign. I was saying like, no, if we need to do that, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I said, please take this down. And then he just went to a tirade of insults after that, and said he was blocking me. And like, I think he misunderstood me saying that we had sort of abandoned trying to do this in the United States because the odds are so incredibly bad there that the only way you could really do this is via lobbying, and the odds are way better in other countries, and the benefits flow outward from that almost certainly. So even if we have a success in another country, it is going to be it is going to be, the USA is almost certainly going to get almost all the benefits. Like if it got banned in Australia or France or something like that. Because once they know that, well, I've explained this enough times. So it's not that I'm abandoning the USA entirely. It's more like I'm going to where the opening is, and this is ironically still the USA's best chance. This is the way I look at it. It's kind of a, just going where the openings are. It's a strategic approach to this rather than what seems the most obvious or would make the most sense at face value. We have to, it doesn't. I don't think it's going to work like that. So, and then I did get a few criticisms. These guys were not psychos, and these were civil conversations. But there were, I think, one or two developers that were skeptical about this. But I think what it is they wanted 0% extra work, and they weren't necessarily seeing that this will mostly apply to the future. So, and that solutions, if you did want to make an online only game, I think middleware or third-party solutions would emerge if that's a known requirement to have to be able to compile an end-of-life build without too much trouble once that's a known requirement, because then the market the need for that has opened up in the market, so they would probably fill that in. And they were just looking at it from the perspective of, no, I need to modify my game today to meet this requirement, and that's not really how I don't think how this is going to work. And then there were one or two criticisms about people who are just taking the stance that because we're doing this through government, that's not the answer, or they're extremely wary of this being the answer. And what I've tried to explain that these are the best odds as I see them for this, and doing this through the free market has not only led to the problem being worse, but it has promised to make it even worse in the future. Whereas going through government, we at least get the answer of maybe we can do something. So from my perspective, having a game you enjoy destroyed is as bad as it gets in gaming. It does not get worse than that unless the game could somehow physically harm you. Okay, that's like the only way it gets worse in gaming, in my eyes. So the fact that we're seeing this practice accelerate means we have nothing left to lose, or I have nothing left to lose. So you're not going to scare me in thinking, the government might mishandle this. Okay, yeah, it might. How is that going to be worse than where we are now? If they're destroying the game, what are they going to do that's going to make that game worse? I mean, see, that's just it. It's like you can't scare me with it on these practices if it's if the trajectory is as bad as it's going to get. Because yes, it can get worse, but I think it's going to get worse independently of anything I'm doing. So that's what I mean by the trajectory is as bad as it gets. I mean, we had, so it's, I think, I guess the other thing is the people who acknowledge everything I'm saying, and then it comes down to like an actual value clash where to them, they don't want the games destroyed, but respecting the absolute freedom of the seller to the point of no government influence is the more important value to them. So it's like they don't like what the sellers are doing, but the freedom of the sellers to do whatever they want is the more important value. Whereas for me, not destroying the game is the more important value in most cases, I would think. For me, it kind of depends on the situation, but I wasn't joking in that video where I said, to me, it's the same as if you went into a museum and started setting fire to paintings. Because that's how I look at it. And even that is not as important as something like, let's say, like physical harm to somebody. Like if, that's just it. I can't think of a scenario where it would be dependent on that. But, there are things more important than game destruction. I 100% acknowledge that. And that's why when I can, I'm trying not to jam up government avenues that are addressing something more important, like, like toxic spills or like addressing homelessness or stuff, more serious issues. But if it's competing with like other consumer issues, then it's open season as far as I'm concerned, because this is a major consumer issue. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I am in favor. It's unfortunately for all of us, I think it is a checkmate move, but I am open to any solution that stops the games being destroyed. The problem is I am not seeing any other solution other than trying to get government to step in. So, I mean, if someone can brainstorm something that, and I think the difference is I'm not talking about some games. I'm talking about almost all games. So yes, there are things you can do to individual games to try to, appeal to the developer or publisher. And sometimes the response, or some people talk about like raising funds to buy the rights. I mean, I find that actually a little insulting because they've already sold the game to you or licensed it under the psychological pretense of selling it, or they sell it to you the exact same way you would be sold a game with a perpetual license that you can run forever. So it's almost like they have to be bribed extra to not do crime on top of what they made from the crime. Is the way I look at that. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's kind of a checkmate move in that I don't know of any other way to do this and have it work. So that's why I'm going the route I am. All right, but I think it's mostly like a vocal minority of like the people who are against this, and there's also the people who misunderstand what we're doing. I mean, look, even by the end of this, there's going to be people saying like, well, you can't expect them to support the game forever. Yeah, no, I don't. And we've said that repeatedly, and people are still going to misunderstand that, but that's okay. If our biggest criticisms are things we're not asking for and not pushing for, then that's encouraging in a way. Okay. Do you think gaming historians will look back on your efforts as the first in game preservation activism and future greedy video game publishers will be like what cigarettes companies are like now? I'm not sure if I think that sentence might have been missing some words, but who knows? I mean, maybe if we're successful, but let's say we're like totally successful. I could see in a few years, like the games industry on average just completely forgetting about this and just taking it for normal. Like the whole thing's been normalized. So in the future, like, well, of course you get to keep your game. Duh. Like which would be fine. And people just forget about all this and fine. Hey, whatever gets us to the finish line. So, because like right now, how often do you see people talking about how you can get refunds on Steam now? And it didn't used to be like that. I mean, I remember how it was different, but I think a lot of gamers don't really think about that right now anymore. Excuse me. Think about that much anymore because it's just kind of assumed, oh yeah, you can play the game for an hour or two, and if you don't like it, you can return it. Or that was a huge shift, but it just got kind of normalized. So that'll be great if so. Their favorite game dungeons are the shorter ones that cover weird games. Those are the most rewatchable ones for them personally. Are you planning on doing another game dungeon episode like that soon? Soon, probably not, because I don't like, but something like that could be next after the next big game dungeon. Because I feel like when there's been like a long time gap, I like to have like what I call like a full meat episode, where there's lots of stuff in there to talk about everything. And then after that, I'd be more comfortable with having shorter episodes because I think by then the expectation is like, okay, it's been a long time. You better deliver, Ross. So I kind of raise my standards, but maybe the game dungeon after that could be some more shorter ones. And I do plan to make more ones like that. So they're saying, glad I got to make an appearance on both Mudahar and the Second Wind podcast. Got any other you plan on appearing as a guest on? Plans, no, but I'm open to appearing on more if people want me to appear at something that has like a decent audience base where we can, kind of spread the message more. I am slowly appearing on some like relatively small channels that probably won't tip the scales any, but it just depends. Some people I can see like, I've noticed on some YouTube channels, their channel seems to be like perfectly good quality of what you'd expect of a channel with like hundreds of thousands of viewers. And it's like, they just can't break out of the algorithm. And I kind of feel bad for those. I kind of want to like help them out more, even though that's not tactically necessarily the wisest decision to appear on those. But I kind of mix in those a little bit also. So, but I tell them they're kind of in the back of the line because, if there's a channel that has like millions of viewers, I have to prioritize that because I can reach out to more. But I think we're slowly approaching kind of critical mass for most avenues of what we're doing. I think the things we still need to do are the European Citizens Initiative, which hasn't opened. It's been submitted, but it hasn't opened yet. That's where we're going to need a lot of publicity. In Brazil, if we can get enough surveys of people who own the crew, that's another one. But again, I think we're going to have to make inroads on Portuguese-speaking channels for that. And the UK, if we open up a new avenue where everybody can complain, but we need to verify some things first, like with the CMA. But yeah, those are like the three big ones. I guess if more petitions open up in France or Germany, or I think somebody was talking about Portugal, those could also use more publicity. But like for filing complaints to the DGCCRF, I mean, it won't hurt to keep filing complaints. But I think, and for I'm probably butchering the pronunciation, the Verbraucherzentrale in Germany, I think they're probably getting enough to pay attention to this. But we'll see how it goes. And let's see. Oh, yeah, in the UK petition, we can use more signatures. Though we'll see what happens. Even if nothing happens at 100K, it would be nice to know that we did everything we could with the UK. So, oh yeah, in Canada, that's another petition. But I feel like all the most important parts we've kind of mostly hit critical mass on. But hey, does it hurt to just maximize our odds too? All right. Yeah, there's the mention that the UK... So the UK petition is probably going to get a new answer. Who knows what they're going to say. Okay, somebody's asking why I haven't done set up merchandise. Is there a reason you haven't? Would you need help with creating some of that merchandise? Yeah, the merchandise, it's kind of like something I'm like, I've been on the fence about perpetually for a couple reasons. Oh, wow, there's a bug I'm going to have to kill. Hold on. Okay. I don't know if I got it. We'll see. Yeah, okay, so for the merchandise, one is like, I'm not sure there's any escaping of it, especially when you're doing stuff like clothes, that it's pretty much all reliant on sweatshop labor. And while I'd say you kind of almost can't go through the modern world without using that also, it feels a little different when I would be on the side that's directly profiting from that. So it would just be kind of like, and the thing is, when I'm having those kinds of thoughts, it makes me think, well, what's the reason for doing so? Because I'm someone who can understand like ends justify the means, but if it's just to just make more money when I'm still able to pay rent, then it's like, well, geez, I don't know. That's not really. I mean, I would be like probably multiple layers detached from it, but I don't know. It just, I haven't been able to like kind of square that in my head exactly. And the other reason is this would kind of, like, the profit margins would be terrible. I mean, because like, let's say the t-shirt or something costs $20 and I get $1 out of it. So that's like what, a 5% out of that before taxes. And it's like, man, that's incredibly inefficient. However, people want the shirts. So I was thinking, well, maybe it would make sense to just sell stuff like shirts, but at cost, and just say that, like, this does not support me at all financially. This is just if you want a shirt. So they cut me out of the equation. However, I'd still have to probably pay taxes on that. So I don't know. It's like, again, I've said before, like, my heart is not into business. And it actually got me thinking that, that, like, in order to be successful at business, you need a certain ruthlessness and willing to exploit others in one way or another, or else just a blindness to what you're doing. And I do have that if it's my own personal survival or like a defense of somebody else. But beyond that, I don't really have that killer instinct past that. It's like a valve that kind of it's like a circuit breaker that shuts off once I feel like it's not for my own personal survival or for something that's incredibly important for me. So, like, I can be a bastard, but I don't want to. So, and it's like the more awareness I have how the business works, then it's like, it makes it harder for me to just do it. I don't know. I guess I kind of know too much. But on the other hand, I understand people wanting to just buy a shirt and that they like it. I mean, so it's, but I don't know. I'm not saying no, but the fact that my heart isn't into business has kind of disincentivized me, and trying to figure out a way to kind of square it all also makes me, like, I haven't found a good solution. So I don't know. Yeah, so my apologies to everybody who is waiting on, like, having good merchandise and t-shirts and stuff. I'm not, my mind's in the wrong place for it. But I could do it if, like, enough people really want it, I guess. Or maybe I'll do that thing where it's just the whole thing's at cost, and I say right on the site, none of this money goes, I make no profit from this. Because, why go to all that extra effort if it's just like 5% profit, Okay, so, let's see. Asmongold that said he was willing to interview you at some point when he watched your video on stream. Have you two gotten in touch yet? No, I was not aware he said that, actually. Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about him. I've only seen like a couple clips of him before, I think, talking about Path of Exile, where I found it by accident. He seems like a general gaming streamer that just comments on everything. Yeah, sure. I mean, let me know how I should contact him, or how I imagine somebody as big as he is has some PR people that could contact me. Sure, I'll be happy to do an interview with. That kind of goes for, like, anyone that's, like, has a big channel or anyone willing to discuss this. The only exception is if you come across as a complete psycho, or you're talking about things that are so edgy that, you're like riding the line of getting, like, banned from YouTube. It's not that I think some bans, I think, are unjustified. It's just that I'm single issue. I want to keep it simple, and I'd rather not, like, get involved with stuff that's, like, what I would call, like, nuclear as far as the topics some people cover, stuff that I don't even want to mention on stream. Best I can tell, he's not that. He's just giving his takes on just whatever. So that's probably should be fine. So yeah, I'll be happy to appear in that, or any other YouTubers that are interested. This is an ongoing offer. I mean, again, I don't know much about Asmongold, but from what I've seen, he's just giving his opinion on stuff. So sure, you know. Okay, somebody's asking if I played the Broken Sword games. I have not. That's one I've. That's one. I mean, I've been aware of it, but I never like really jumped towards it because I tend to like stuff that's a little more fantastic. You know, with kind of fantasy or science fiction, that sort of thing. And Broken Sword just struck me sort of as like kind of like contemporary mystery kind of thing. Maybe I have the wrong take on it. So it's not that I'm sure they're good games. I mean, a lot of people, it has its own cult following, but what those don't appeal to me as much as something like waging a war campaign on another planet or something, or a mystery that's going to end up with entering some alternate reality, breaking through into this world or something like that. Yeah, that sort of stuff appeals to me more. But and actually for Broken Sword, there was a fan-made game. I think it was Broken Sword 2.5, where a YouTuber I like, Stan Birdman, basically voiced the protagonist for it, is my understanding. So I might check that out eventually. Unfortunately, I think he kind of retired from doing YouTube, but look, I've talked before how I'm not great with improv. He is pretty good with improv. Like he has lots of videos where he just starts talking. It's hilarious. And I'll make a note of this. My all-time favorite, I've linked to this multiple times before, but it's great. My all-time favorite gaming story is by him, where he was talking about Sonic 3D Blast. Yeah, it's his No Sleep Till Brooklyn video. So, and I think that's him just talking off the cuff, and it's just utterly hilarious. It's easily my favorite game story ever. So, I'll have a link to that on YouTube. Is there anything you miss from living in America? Yeah, I mean, I do kind of miss forested mountains. I mean, I guess I could find that in places in Europe, but not where I currently live. I guess, you know, people speaking English, I can understand what they're saying. You know, that's definitely something I miss. Trying to think. I mean, like a lot of the landscape in the U.S. is pretty amazing in general, but well, I guess it depends what part of the country too. I mean, I guess there's a few like quite unhealthy foods I miss, but I don't really miss it because it's like, well, I know I shouldn't be eating that stuff anyway. Trying to think. Yeah, I guess just having people to talk to, and at least from where I was living, the forests were much more impressive in the United States than here, or than where I am in Poland. Let's see if the chat's saying stuff. Are you used to the metric system yet? Well, I had long before this, I did distance running, so I had some sense of kilometers. I'm still worthless on Celsius as opposed to Fahrenheit. Let's see. Centimeters I'm all right with because, you know, on a ruler, you know, it's 12 inches or about 30 centimeters. So I have some sense of centimeters. Ounces, not really. Or no, wait, are ounces imperial? Is it just kilogram? Geez, now I'm forgetting like what even metric used for. Oh yeah, milliliter. Yeah, liters and milliliters. I'm not that great with it. I think I remember like a gallon is 3 and something liters. I'm not sure. Yeah, kilograms I'm decent at because that's 2.2 pounds. So yeah, kilograms I'm probably best at. So I guess it depends on how easy the conversion is in my head with the math. How much time do you plan on Polish this year? I was hoping to spend like 10, 15 minutes on it every day by now, but I got so busy on the campaign that just derailed all my plans, just like everything. So I'm kind of where I was. Really, I'm not that much different than where I was in December or January of this year, but that should be changing relatively soon. So, okay, answer some more submitted questions. Given the current state of the video game industry, which storefront do you prefer and why? Steam or GOG? I mean, I guess GOG because it's just less drama. You know, I know the game's safe. I can save a copy of it and it's fine. Now, of course, there are tons of games that aren't on GOG, so I don't limit myself just to that. But I mean, if it's all things are equal, I would take the GOG copy. I mean, sometimes you miss out on some features on GOG, like they'll have like some sort of like small bonuses. I sometimes check on what those are. Most of the time, I don't usually care about them, like especially like achievements. I could not care less about achievements. Well, I guess like I care about achievements 1%, and the only achievement I care about is I'm curious how far how far I am into the game compared to everybody else. And then the achievements are one way of tracking. Because sometimes, especially games, if I feel like the game is cool, but I don't like the difficulty, I'll sometimes use like a trainer or cheat engine or something, and I'll kind of compare like how big the drop off rate is. Usually, any game I do that, I am always in the minority for people who made it into the game. So it's like, yeah, I am cheating, but I'm playing the game, which is more than you can say for most people who played it. Or sometimes the metric I'll use is there's a huge drop off from people who like start the game versus keep playing. So sometimes seeing what the drop off rate is after the first level, because the people who, and even then it's usually a minority for like hard games. So I'm just kind of curious, but again, I do not care that much at all. So if I don't have that information, fine. You know, it's, in fact, I've always found it, I guess, curious that some people care so much about achievements. To me, it's like a completely artificial milestone. It's like, I guess the only exception is sometimes you can get achievements in games where if you get so many points, that'll add to like a discount at that store for a future game. So it's just like, oh, okay. Well, then if you play the game a certain way, you get like, it's the equivalent of like a coupon on a future game you might want to buy. So that has like an actual tangible payoff. So I can understand that. But just the requirement for its own sake, I mean, if I like the concept, sure, I'll do the completion, but if I don't like it, then no, I don't want to do it, you know? So like I'm thinking with Mirror's Edge Catalyst, like I didn't 100% the game because I didn't care about a lot of the races, but I 100%ed multiple exploration objectives, not because I cared about the reward, but because that was a great excuse for me to explore that world even harder, you know, and I love that because I like that world and I like the excuse to more deliberately explore parts of the world. Like I did something similar in Watch Dogs, where I solved all those QR code puzzles because I enjoyed those puzzles, and it was like a neat excuse to kind of hunt around the city to try and find them. So I like stuff like that. But okay, more questions. Okay, this is a question. They're just informing me Warhammer 40K Inquisitor Martyr is getting an offline mode. Great, that's one I was curious about. The online only mode. I mean, the online only requirement is what made me more hesitant about trying it, because I'm thinking, wow, geez, do I want to get this if it's just gonna get killed soon? So great, that makes me more interested in it. I did play Warhammer Chaos Bane. That was an action RPG. Man, that one, the production value, it was there. It's just the the game design needed some help, but like it really felt like budget title game design. Where I feel like that's the sort of game where if you had a different map designer and you had like a different just game designer, just the how the mechanics work, that game could have been a lot better. So it's yeah, I feel like it's kind of rare, but maybe I just haven't played enough of those games where you see ones where the production value is pretty good and it's just like a design issue. Because a design issue, because usually it's like multiple things when there's problems with games. And a design issue and just like how the mechanics work, that can be a relatively cheap fix. I mean, I guess it depends on how many hours deep you are into the designing, but whereas something where the game just needs like a lot more polish or you need better assets like animations and better textures, that can be an expensive fix. So, yeah, and it's not that the game was bad. It's just like it felt too mediocre the way they had it. So maybe Inquisitor Martyr is more the same, but I'm at least curious about it. Let's see. With the price of AAA games being $70, what's the most you're willing to spend on a game nowadays? It's still about $15. And even then, it has to be one I'm really interested in. Like, I mean, maybe once I see games across the board increasing in price and sale, it might shift my expectations some. And also, for people who always make the argument like, oh, well, because of inflation has gone up, you really should be paying this much more for the game. Well, has your salary gone up in proportion to that too? I mean, because that's the other half of it, If you're still making about the same amount of money you were, then the dynamics don't change as to what you can afford, or if anything, it's gone down. But yeah, no, again, I am multiple levels removed of what the day one price is of a game versus my budgeting for a game. Like I'm almost never buying a game like 2 years is like the earliest I'm usually considering it these days. Usually it's more by 4, and then I try to kind of like look at the publisher to see like what's their history. Because some of them after 4 years, it's probably still going to be the same price after like 8. But others, it's going to be like, nope, they're going to be probably 10% cheaper the next year. And the year after that, so just keep waiting as long as you can. So I just need more time, more than price, more than more new games. So. Oh yeah, this one. Well, I've kind of covered this in the past, but I'll mention it. They say they feel like the jump to Hollywood scenarios when talking about dangers of AI, about becoming sentient, etc. And they feel the wealthy, powerful, and morally bankrupt people are going to do really awful things with AI without worrying. Well, first off, I'll have a link to this. After the discussion I had with Yudkowsky, I made a chart that details all my thoughts on what I think the risks are of AI, and I have it sort of labeled by this is happening right now versus I think this is probably fantasy. And yeah, I think there are risks, but most of it's not what gets popularly talked about. They're saying what? Okay, stuff like improved spyware. Yeah, I have that on there. Scanning messages, taking people's jobs. Death of human expression with AI writing, making art, programming, and generating games, and so on. They think it's awful what's happened so far with people feeding tons of user data to improve AI, essentially plagiarizing humanity to a scary extent, and that it's only going to get worse from here on out. They generally think the mentality of anything you can do and AI can do better for you is generally a scary one that might cause an existential crisis for a lot of creative types if we keep going down this route. They think it's not worth it and want to know your thoughts on this. Oh man, you're stirring up so many thoughts. I'll try to go through this without taking too long. All right. So yeah, well, one, you'll have to maybe somebody in the chat can link that graphic. Well, I didn't make the graphic. I made like kind of the outline for the chart, and then volunteer helped me out with making the actual visuals for it. But I agree with you on the risks for most of what you have there, and that's on my chart. I think the biggest risk is actually taking people's jobs. However, that's a risk. Most of the risk of AI, I see as things we were already doing, and this just amplifies it. Like AI did not cause like homelessness or poverty or collapse of the ecosystem or threat of war. So these are all things humanity was absolutely causing without AI. Now, AI has made some of that worse, but it may make some of it better too. I'm unfortunate. Well, I guess unfortunately for you, I'm on the complete other stance. I'm on like the mad scientist end of AI. However, I think there probably is some overlap of stuff we agree on. Well, you're talking about mass plagiarization. See, I have two thoughts even on that. One is, if you think your stuff's being plagiarized by AI, they should get sued to oblivion. But however, it's easy to bury that unless you have real smoking gun indicators. It's hard to say, like, especially for drawing, like, oh well, the way you draw an eyeball. I mean, did the AI look at your photo specifically, but you might be able to hop on board with class action stuff for that. I don't know. However, that's not going to stop the tide because it is possible to do it all above board. It'll be slower and more expensive for the companies doing it, which is why they don't do it, or most of them don't do it. But you could just get explicit permission from every artist or every writer that goes into it and do it that way. Actually, I think there was a deal that was OpenAI is like having a brokering deal with Reddit to just take everything from Reddit. So, over time, I don't think you're going to be able to stop it even through plagiarism. But you might as well take... I mean, if you can act on it, you might as well. I mean, press legal charges against it. And like the other thought I had on plagiarism is part of me doesn't want plagiarism to be a thing exactly, and we should feel free to take from anything just because this would be like kind of like a utopia state where, people are getting their needs met and like, the financialization of like creative works is sort of eliminated. But again, I realize that's like kind of a utopian fantasy. So, I mean, and some things, well, like I've heard with like a lot of coding projects, they'll just take stuff from other projects that's almost like an industry standard, except for a few things where it has to be done in-house or can't contain open source from other areas. I feel like you can kind of see sort of a just gestalt emerge from having more access to more information and creative things. But that said, with AI, it could be things kind of backfire in a way I hadn't thought of, where I've heard some AIs their models are actually starting to get worse because what's happening is we're seeing floods of AI-generated comments and articles. So the new AI is sampling from the old AI. So you're essentially having the equivalent of inbreeding with the AI. So that might cap how smart the AI gets in certain like applications of it, maybe much more rapidly than we thought, because it may not necessarily be honing to get better and better the way it could with some things. And it could be it's just kind of polluting its own resource stream in order to learn from, because it's like inbreeding. So yeah, that might happen. And in which case, I mean, yeah, for example, I disagree with the statement that you said, or the mentality, anything you can do in AI can do better for you. I wish. I have a wish list of things I want to use AI for, and there's nothing for it right now. Or there might be, but not, or it could be if it was like specialized for what I want. But if there's no model that does that, then I don't have anything. So I think the people thinking like that, I want to say they're either over imaginative or else under imaginative, in the sense that they're over imaginative in the sense that they think, oh, it's going to be like Star Trek and all these movies and everything, and they don't really have the grounding in reality. Or they're under imaginative in that their exposure to AI happens to meet their particular needs very well. So they're kind of like, oh my God, this is solving everything. And I am seeing limitations left and right with AI, and I'm just waiting for things to get better and applications I want to use it on. Stuff I'm pretty sure AI could do a good job of, like my dream software video, that's something where I think AI could get us pretty damn close, but I don't know if there's anything specialized enough for it. So I don't know. I'm seeing behind the curtain a little too easily from my perspective. But hey, I do hope it gets better. And if you want kind of the checkmate argument for no, I do think AI is going to make things better in a lot of ways, it's like medical discoveries. Like I think I saw an article now that they're able to, like AI is able to like examine blood and detect probable indicators of chronic illnesses. Like I think they were saying like 7 years in advance what we would normally be able to do in a lab without AI. I'm thinking that sounds awesome. That could literally save lives, like having that kind of implementation. Or one good use I heard of AI, because I think AI is best at stuff you don't need 100% accuracy. Yeah, I mentioned that in the State of Mind video. Like one I heard of was they're using AI to sort of use robots to help weed crops. And I was thinking, oh yeah, that would be great, because it can recognize what's a weed and what's a crop with a high degree of accuracy. And if it makes a mistake at like 1% of the time or less, well, so what? That saves so much work having to do it like that, and that can increase food yields. So, what? Okay, good. Somebody's saying, Good Morning America is talking about how AI can help do your job better. Well, hey, probably the number one thing that could help me right now, I mean, again, I have a list that would help me do my job better, would be like really robust volume balancing. And that may exist, but I really have to hunt for, like I'm talking where I just feed it the raw audio, and it cleans up like what I would call like the micro clicks. So not the real obvious like click, but like the really tiny ones you hear in, like say I say the word mellow, and there's like the tiniest like click, like inside of that, one that can detect that without going too aggressively in the other direction. And then one that can handle like my peaks without it sounding like, just like intelligently being able to balance like when I have to shout versus just talking in a regular voice without it sounding like that compression squash weirdness effect. And again, I'm pretty sure there's probably plugins that can do that right now. It's just that I haven't stumbled onto the right ones yet. That would absolutely help me out. Or it could, let's see, I can think of some other things, like with editing. Like I don't expect it to do all my editing, but like sometimes I like try to like line up shots so that the flow is smooth. And it would be great if in AI I could say, okay, you've seen what I'm doing with this editing. Can you suggest where my next cut should be? And then it does a suggestion, I can play, and then like, oh yeah, that's exactly how I want it to flow. Like for the footage versus the audio. And it might not, it wouldn't be right 100% of the time, but I wouldn't need it to be. But that could save me time. So let's see. Somebody's saying, isn't that the Adobe audio enhancement thing? I don't know. Depends which it is. Something kind of funny about the Adobe audio enhancement. When I did that games on when I did the games campaign video, my room was a little more echoey than a had reverberation in it that I didn't like. I was thinking, this doesn't sound good, but like maybe I can kind of clean this up. And I did a free trial of Adobe stuff. I think there was like some podcast tools, and I tried it on the audio, and they had like a sliding scale, and it did clean it up, and it was clear, but I literally sounded like a different person, like more female, I guess, more feminine. And I was thinking, okay, I sound like a different person. This is too weird. So, however, I did find a very good plugin for it, and it made just a dramatic difference in the audio quality. So, yeah, I didn't trust I didn't trust the Adobe one, but if it had done a good job, but I wouldn't recommend the Adobe one. I tried two that were both very good. One was, I think it's called Deverberate. That one's excellent. And there was another one, oh geez, it was Waves Clarity, something like that. Those both did. It was like I listened to both of them, and I liked the Decon one slightly more, but it was very slight. So those were both. So if you've recorded a video and it sounds like kind of echoey, those both use like AI trained models on it. I don't think the Waves one might use AI for the like AI processing for it. I don't think the Decon one does, but they use AI to train it, the model. So, yeah, Rosa Scott. There you go. That's what it sounded like on the Adobe thing. It was weird. Like I didn't sound exactly like a woman, but it's like I definitely sounded more feminine, the voice, and it sounded like a different person. I mean, it had all my same inflections and everything, but it just sounded like a different person. Not like distorted or off, but just, this is not me, you know? But yeah, so I think I am still extremely optimistic about the potential of AI. However, it is going to cause problems. I think besides jobs, I think one of the biggest risks is just, it's not, I think people, yeah, my wife actually laments about this too, and I keep having to convince her I don't think it's going to be as bad as she thinks. Like you're talking about like death of human expression. I don't think that's going to happen. However, the problem might be that human expression gets kind of buried under all the AI crap. So that it might be difficult to find the good stuff being made by creative people when there's like 10,000 AI generated stuff before that. And I've noticed with like AI art, or to some extent like responses, they all seem to, I get kind of like, I think I'm getting better and better at spotting AI art now. Like, and it has kind of like a feeling I don't quite like for some things. Like I don't know, I think it was like more novel initially, but now it's kind of like, okay, I don't, it just, it's like a very slight, like uncanny valley feeling for me. But I think it follows some sort of like ranges and patterns that at least some of my subconscious is picking up on. And yeah, so I was saying the AI sheen is real. Uh, and I kind of feel like that's kind of like limiting what the extent of its usefulness, especially for creative stuff. Like I think it's much better. Like I think kind of what we're seeing is like it's much better as a tool, and at least in the games industry, well, in the graphics industry also, when actually the music industry also. I'm thinking of autotune. When new tools come along, there's always gonna be some people that abuse the hell out of it and just say this is the answer to everything, kind of like Bloom did in computer graphics, game graphics, and what was another one, like the tinting of things. So I think we're kind of seeing that with AI, where some people just see that as the answer to everything, whereas it's like no, it gets kind of it's not that great if you just start leaning into it too hard, or at least in my opinion. Yeah, somebody's saying a lot of AI art looks like a wobbly mess. See, some of it's very close though, but then something about it's just off in a way in a way my brain or my unconscious doesn't like. And so like I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's like an uncanny valley. I mean, that'll be great if we do cross that, and like I do not get that feeling at all from AI art. And I'm sure there's maybe a few AI photos and art that don't give me that, but art especially, I found I'm becoming kind of sensitive to it. So it's so I was saying, and the human creativity is not. No, I don't think so, but I do think it's kind of it could get kind of buried. So yeah, I mean, oh man, a friend sent me. Oh, I don't have the link right now. They sent me he archived it, an example of an AI generated article. I think it was by Washington Post, where it slipped up, and it was just kind of nonsense. I'll have a link to that in the YouTube description. And it's like, oh man, so it makes me. I think it's good now to read news articles with a sense of paranoia, in the sense that you may want to assume this is AI generated until it's proven otherwise, until you're feeling like, no, it feels like a human wrote this. Because who knows what you're reading now. Actually, somebody was mentioning earlier the critique on the games as a service. I think another friend mentioned that they confirmed a few comments, like either in Reddit or YouTube or something, were AI generated. So it could be the biggest criticisms of something aren't even real, or else they're overrepresented by someone. And I'll have a link to this. Let us never forget, back when I think it was the FCC, they were trying to get. This is before the large language models that are used in modern AI, for the most part. I think it was like 2017 or something. The FCC was collecting comments from the American public on net neutrality, and and they received tons of them. Years later, they found that out of the 22 million comments they received, 18 million of them were generated. They were not actual people making them. So that percent. So I find that data incredibly useful, because I mean there was still AI, but not like what we have now. So that means back then, way back in 2017, it was like 18, it might have been 18 and a half. So that's like over 80% of the comments weren't real. So that's on something we have verified. So who knows what the numbers are now? I mean, like, so yeah, my advice on that would be just have a skepticism towards what you see online, you know. So far, we're at the point where there will be too many signs if I were to say something on video. Yeah, right now you know what I'm saying is real. Not because they can't get it 100% yet trying to imitate me. I mean, they could probably fool a lot of people, but if somebody really analyzed like an AI generated deepfake of me saying something, if you really analyzed it, you could find signs like in the voice, they would see patterns or something. I don't. So that might make real content more valuable. It's hard to say. And the final thought I had, maybe I got back to, is I do think job loss is like one of the biggest risks from it. But the problem is that's more than just AI with artists and people in white collar jobs. It's similar to like what happened to a lot of blue collar jobs with automation and factory stuff. So I feel like those jobs aren't necessarily worth protecting, but we should have something so that people don't have to rely on them to like support themselves. It's like I've said this years before, but it still stands. To me, the real question of people like losing their jobs to AI is what do you do in a society when you have more people who need to support themselves than you have paying enough jobs available to support them? And the longer we go on not answering that question or not coming up with a solution, the uglier things are going to get. And AI turns up, accelerates all that. So I don't think the AI is the problem so much as it's the catalyst, it's the accelerant. Because, I mean, from my perspective, what makes like an artist or somebody working at an office job having their job lost to AI, what makes them more important than somebody who lost their job to just an automation at a factory or just their jobs going overseas to a different area where the people work for less? And then, because I feel, regardless of what job you have, you still need to eat, you still need shelter, So I figured start with those and then work your way down from that for what the priorities should be. So yeah, but I'm seeing way too much potential with AI, but I don't think it's the answer to everything. I think the risk, I agree with what this person said on the risk that see my chart for where I think the biggest risks are. Yeah, it's interesting times ahead. And I am kind of sick of AI art. I kind of wish it either goes away or else it gets a lot better. So I want AI art that gives me zero uncanny valley feelings. Like we need a Turing test for AI art where you can just give me a double blind test and I'm not picking out the AI art like 80% of the time or higher. Honestly, it's probably higher than that. Or I think, yeah, this looks beautiful and nothing about it gives me an uncanny valley feeling. So, all right. How would you respond to people who keep saying just boycott Ubisoft? Well, there's a couple things. One, if I thought that would work, well, yeah, first, this isn't just Ubisoft. This is like this is like the vast majority of companies that have online-only games. But hey, there are some people that would say, fine, let's boycott them all. Okay, if I thought for a minute that a boycott would work, I would be willing to entertain this. However, we've had many boycotts of games in the past, and none of them have ever worked if the game itself is good or the game itself is enjoyable. What I found is, if the game's enjoyable, companies can get away with any anti-consumer practice. The only boycotts that work, it's just kind of a coincidence because the game is terrible. So I don't know if there was a boycott on, I heard a bunch of people hated Anthem. So maybe that was a successful boycott, but that has nothing to do with the practices. It was because the game had problems. So, what? So that's a strategy. So they're basically, and not only does it not work, it incredibly reliably does not work. So this example, I think it has like 100% failure rate. So that's useful in the sense that, okay, this is an obvious dead end. At least everything I'm doing, it's unknown. It literally hasn't been done before for most of these on this issue. Maybe all of them. So at least I'm going into an unknown variable. So yeah, it might all fail, but we don't know that. So those are the first couple issues. The second is, again, if I thought it would work, I would do it anyway. But however, the thing is, games are unique. This isn't like boycotting like a brand of car when your main objective, well, I mean, cars can be unique too, but for most people, their objective of a car is to get them from point A to point B. I mean, some people are going to care about very specific features, but I should probably pick the better example other than car, like toaster. Toaster, you want it to toast your toast. So if another brand does that, you can easily boycott one brand. Whereas the games, they're unique creative experiences. So that's like kind of telling everybody, just think of your favorite game and say, well, just boycott that game, or we'll just boycott that company. And it's like, because you don't know where that's going to fall down on. Now, again, if the boycotts actually worked, that would be worth having the discipline of missing out on that game just to end the practice. But if it's not doing that, then, I mean, it's kind of, look, it's already hard enough to get any sort of like collective discipline from gamers as it is. And the thing they're going to be worst at is not playing games they're interested in. So it's kind of like, you're kind of holding the game hostage then at that point. So it's, it's like that's another uphill battle, even if boycotting does work, which again, I think it doesn't in pretty much every case of games. So I think you would have to get to like, actually, if you want to be more cynical than that, I was talking about this with somebody else, and he was saying, when's the last time a boycott of anything worked? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there probably are some, but there were probably examples where the product was like killing people or something like that, or there was an easy alternative to what you were replacing it with. So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't work is my main criticism of it. And my secondary criticism is you're basically holding the product that at least somebody cares about hostage. And that kind of, you shouldn't, I mean, in a perfect world, I feel like you shouldn't even have to make that decision. You should just choose the game based on whether it appeals to you or not. Not because, they're going to destroy it later, but they're going to destroy it later maybe or probably and not tell you when. It's like, why the hell should this even be on the table in the first place? So somebody's saying, didn't Frito-Lay have a pretty successful boycott? I have no idea. Maybe. Well, I think they had a strike, didn't they? That's different. Did they? Because a strike's differently, because then you're withholding your labor. Frito-Lay, is it a boycott? Because yeah, I'm seeing a Frito-Lay strike. That's not the same as a boycott. Yeah, somebody's saying boycotts don't work in entertainment. Yeah, probably true. I mean, yeah, somebody's saying voting with your wallet is a Band-Aid proposal to a systemic issue. I mean, again, it has to work. The way I see, I think voting for games, I vote with my wallet all the time for whether I'm interested in the game or not. To me, that's where voting with your wallet should end. If, like I said before, I'm not interested in a lot of AAA games. That's usually because of the theme, or else sometimes because of the gameplay. I just don't care for it. So but again, that doesn't. I mean, I'm not against those games being made if somebody else does like them. So it's, yeah, but yeah, that's the overwhelming thing is it just doesn't work. So I'm going to disregard strategies that not only do not work, but have a very substantiated track record of not working. So, uh, so I'm saying, what videos are you planning to release before the big break? Well, I don't know when the big break is now. This skewed everything. But they're saying, yeah, Game Dungeon originally planned. Game Dungeon follow up, yeah, that's on there. 2 side videos. 1 side video, it's so time consuming. I don't even know now if I should do that because this campaign hijacked everything. But the other side video, that one, yes, that one's partially done already, and that one might even be next. But I'll probably have to do some smaller game dungeons or maybe Freeman's Mind to make up for this big gap. See, this campaign threw a wrench in the works of everything. So, oh, they're asking about somebody's asking about the Call of Duty boycott. Is this not something misleading as it might be that people will refuse to buy Activision or Treyarch games from that point on? Oh, no, it's not. Okay, yeah, they're asking about the Call of Duty boycott. I think it was for Modern Warfare 2. No, because okay, so they're asking. Okay, maybe that was what I think this person's asking is maybe that was misjudged because they were viewing it in the present, and you needed to look at the future games to really judge it. No, for 2 reasons. One is the Call of Duty series is fantastically successful economically, so obviously that didn't work. And 2, you can judge that particular boycott on how it worked in the present because what happened was there was a boycott group on Steam to not buy a Modern Warfare 2. And what went viral was the screenshot showing that among that Steam group, that like half the players at that moment in time were running the game. So in other words, they couldn't adhere to their own boycott. So this wasn't like they were the minority, but they held the line. No, it's like even your focused minority could not get their act together to have discipline on its own boycott. So it was a failure on every single level. So no, you would have a point if they held the line, but Modern Warfare 2 is still mostly successful, but then the next Call of Duty game saw a big drop in sales or something like that. So yeah, I get your logic, but no, in this case, it shows it's kind of hopeless for gamers. So yeah, it's pathetic, really. I mean, well, it's either pathetic or else the people involved were just trolling the whole time. Like, those are the only 2 options for that, you know. For the people, for the movement as a whole. Obviously, there are people who boycott things and stick to them, but they're such a small minority. To be fair, I think I boycotted, me personally, paying for every online only game until the Secret World. The Secret World I finally caved because man, I wanted to try that one. And even then, and I'm glad I played it, even though I'm still 100% under the view that they need an end of life plan. You know, I'm not against them. I'm not against games being online only. I prefer they not be online only, but I'm not against that. But it's need the end of life plan. Okay. You gain the magic ability to produce videos instantly. What does your upload schedule look like? Well, I guess daily would probably be a little too much for people. But I mean, what would you guys say? Like 3 times a week? Like one's a game dungeon, one's Freeman's Mind, one's civil protection or a side video or something like that, you know, or experiment. I think 3 times a week would be about right. Because people might not be able to catch up if it was like once every day. I don't know. Let's see. Oh, okay. Somebody's asking. They made a compilation of Freeman's Mind into all one video, and they're concerned if that's going to be a problem because they don't have many YouTube views. Okay, I'll just explain exactly what the situation is. The bigger that is, the more it kind of cuts into my revenue. So if you're small, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to come after you. But if it gets kind of viral, then it becomes problematic. And I kind of wish you might take it down then. I realize it is more convenient, but it's unfortunately having to compete with what I'm doing. So with the revenue directly. So YouTube is kind of forcing my hand on it. But if it has like, 20 views, I'm not going to go after that. It's just not worth my time. What if they sent it to you if you upload it yourself? Well, the problem is, two things. On a very minor level, I don't, it's like, well, one, I don't want to hold the credits of everybody who contributed to the video during that time. But the other is, then everybody's just going to go to that video and just not go to the individual ones. And YouTube is incentivized doing the individual ones. So again, that also cuts into my revenue, just less directly. So you can thank YouTube for this. But yeah, basically, if you're copying my stuff, but it's small, I'm very unlikely to come after you for much of anything. But if you're getting like thousands or hundreds of thousands of views, it's like, I really hate, I'm not sure if I've done any takedown like that before. And I don't want to, but if it was getting to be a liability, I might. So just because of the financial incentives. Like the only takedown I've done that I think was when this Russian channel was uploading copies of my videos, and they were dubbing them and collecting money off it. So I figured, well, okay, these are dubbed, so that's a completely different market than what I'm doing anyway. So even though they're profiting off of it, I was never going to make money this way anyway, and that's expanding my audience. So okay. But then what they did is they started laying copyright claims against me on the original Freeman's Mind videos. So at that point, I saw them like a mad dog. And I got some advice to say, no, you have to counterclaim them. And so I did that on all their videos, and they all took them down. So yeah, so they made copies of my videos, but then copyright claimed me. Yeah, somebody's saying scumbags. I think it was probably more, like, you have to be really stupid to do that intentionally. I think what most likely happened was they just had some intern say, yeah, go ahead and do copyright claims on our videos. And they managed to flag mine, and I bit back in a big way, on them. So, because it's just too, somebody says the bold Uno reverse card. Yeah, I mean, it's just, like, again, it's like a mad dog behavior because that's like literally, well, not literally, but, it's biting the hand that feeds you, essentially. Because, again, I was okay with them. That kind of goes for my videos in general, that maybe I shouldn't say this. If you're going to actually dub my videos, I don't see myself coming after you, even if you're profiting off of it. Because, no, if you don't ask for donations, though, because that's being kind of, you're pushing your luck then. But if it's actually dubbed as opposed to subtitles, that's not a market I was going to host anyway, really, because that's just a different market. So, see, I'm somebody who I kind of prefer subtitles to dubbing. So, dubbing kind of feels weird to me when I watch shows like that. So, all right, I've said too much already. If you had to live with the consequences of one of the endings of the original Deus Ex, which ending would you choose? Well, my real choice would be in Invisible War, the Helios ending, because That's the closest as I've seen to like sort of a techno utopia, which might backfire, but it sounded like it had a lot of potential. But out of the original ending, I think I'd still go with the Helios ending, just because that would be the most interesting. I think, because you had the Dark Ages ending, which would just be like a long reset and a lot of death and hardship. You have the Illuminati ending, which would be kind of the same as it is now, but the Helios ending, which who knows what that's going to end up being. So that would be the most interesting. Yeah. Okay, somebody's saying that might have been a separate channel, not the people who actually made the dub. So they were copying off another Russian channel. Well, then they can work that out. You know, the people made the dub against the copy YouTube channel. You know. But yeah, if it's subtitles, if it's just subtitles, I prefer that to be on my own channel, and you can submit those on the Cursed Farms forum. Um, there's a place to submit them, and then somebody else uploads them. We have separate languages set up and that sort of thing. But yeah, for dubbing, go ahead, go at it. It's I wasn't gonna host that anyway, and it would be a different market. Oh yeah, I had to think about this one. What video game, movie, album, any piece of media would you want to erase from history to avoid it disrupting the timeline? Well, there could be some really big ones that have caused a lot of problems, but then it could be that manifests itself in another way. But if I was gonna, I thought about it, and if I had to choose one, I would go with Yakety Sax, the song, because I've heard that abused so much to the point where like I hate hearing that. Anytime I hear that in a video, I just mute it now. So that's just been abused. So sorry if you really like Yakety Sax, but I'd be happier if I just never had to hear that again. Okay, I'll answer that quick. They're asking, you have major problems with Machinima. They're asking about the weird uploading times of like episodes 45 and onward. Yeah, that was because that's when I first broke free from Machinima, but I didn't have the rights back to the original videos yet. So I was able to make new ones on my own, but the old ones still had to stay on their channel. Then later, once they went down, I was able to re-upload all my videos. Or I might be mixing up the chronology a little bit, but that was the basic reason. Okay, yeah, I'll cover this one. If legislation or new laws get passed in response to stop killing games, would you want the laws to apply retroactively to existing games? They're talking about Dark Sports server went offline years ago. Well, first off, I would say that's not going to happen, but in light of a couple things I've learned that I'm just not going to discuss further, that's not impossible, but I don't think it's likely. For the most part, yeah, any new law I don't think would be retroactive. So it would be from that point onward. As for what I prefer, I actually don't want maximum disruption for developers. And that would be maximum disruption for developers. So I guess what I would want would, however, I'd like to highly incentivize developers to try to make end-of-life plans for existing games. So I don't know the best way to arrange that, but you know, a lot of this is going to be out. One thing some people forget is a lot of this is going to be out of my hands entirely. Like most of what we're doing, I mean, you saw the petition proposals. That's part of the most that was within my control and influence. Most of this is basically raising awareness to government of the problem, that's saying, hey, we think this violates existing laws. And past that, it's up to the government to how they handle it. So I'm essentially just reporting stuff is the majority of what our campaign is. So it's if governments decide the industry is breaking the law, well, then they decide how they're going to handle that. So I'm hoping that leads to some sort of penalty or deterrent for them creating games with no end of life plan in the future. What about ensuring that anyone working towards bringing dead games back having some immunity from rights holder legal action? That would be nice, but that's a bigger scope. See, the problem is then you're getting into copyright and trying to create copyright exemptions. Oh man, that invites so many enemies, like with Disney especially. I don't. I mean, I would be for that, but I don't want that kind of heat. So, besides, I mean, if we have it, the other thing is if we have a success on this, that's likely going to shift the climate and the Overton window on a lot of things. So it could be we start seeing a few more like rights emerge or pushes emerge from elsewhere now that they know that that companies can literally not just do anything they want, and they're like, hey, there actually are laws with consequences. That might be a nice reminder for the public, assuming we're successful. They might come out. Look, they might come down and tell us to go to hell on every single measure. So, but then at least we'll know. Okay, I may start skipping some questions. Voices crapping out a bit. I have seen the movie AI. Yeah, that's a movie where you can really tell where Kubrick's involvement ended because he died and Spielberg took over. It's almost like a line because like the mood is totally different between the two. I mean, it was all right, but okay. I talked about the DGCRF thing in the other video. Oh yeah, what are your thoughts on sci-fi stories where people only try to colonize planets? And I think personally they find it weird they limit themselves to a ball floating in space where you could build giant space infrastructure by exploiting the near limitless amount of resources available in space. For example, if we were to strip the Earth of all its iron, we would have enough to build around 100,000 spacecraft, the size of an aircraft carrier for each star in the galaxy. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I think genetically we're wired to appreciate things like an atmosphere and sunlight to some degree. But I mean, you could probably make pretty good imitations or sort of biodome ships with enough resources also. But no, that's a good point, is that actually might be in science fiction stories, space mining and resource harvesting could be the bigger priority. And yeah, I'm a big fan of spectacle, so I love like gigantic space empire type stuff, No, yeah, I mean, not only that, but most planets, oh yeah, gravity, that's the other thing that we tend to like on planets. But I mean, you could simulate that with enough resources, but I guess some of it's already done on planets. There's less work colonizing the right planet than there is in building some sort of space biodome. But yeah, that's if we had like faster than light travel and space exploration, look, there's a hell of a lot more planets that have minerals or gases that we use than there are ones that are even remotely habitable. So or moons, So yeah, I mean the ones the ones that have like even a chance of us living on those are far between. So the number one use would be more of what you're talking about, because that would just be what's available. And also you could use drone mining, essentially. If the technology was good enough, you could save a lot of life, and even if it's safe, people wouldn't want to spend like months or years in transit you could just send drones essentially doing these gigantic mining jobs, and then bringing back the goods from that. So the materials. Okay. I hadn't heard of. Oh yeah, I think I did heard of Wayfinder, where they're saying they plan to. Um, yeah, the inability to continue supporting. Yeah, they're basically transitioning from games as a service to just a normal game, as I understand it. So, sure, I mean that makes sense for a lot of developers. Again, while I prefer games like that, I'm not trying to knock developers that do follow the games as a service model if they have an end of life plan. So. Okay, briefly, somebody's asked about what I thought of the Helldivers 2 situation. That's where, like, a lot of people got cut off regionally, but then they, got so much hell and probably a lot of refunds and maybe some legal liability since they sold the game in districts that they shouldn't have been selling them into according to their license agreement. So that they might have gotten into some legal trouble with that if they had stayed the course on it. So they backed off on the PlayStation Network requirement. Since then, I think the CEO has said that they want the game to run indefinitely, even if they're no longer around. But then he was talking about like an AI director and didn't come out and say you would have private servers or something like that. So I don't know. Like until they're actually saying what, until they're committing saying, yes, if we had to shut down the game, you would be able to host it like remotely or something. Unless they're saying that, I think it's guilty until proven innocent. But I mean, more power to them if they do have an end of life plan. Then I'd be more tempted to buy the game because then I know I'm not going to lose it, you know. But that's me personally. Most people aren't making that kind of calculation. Somebody's saying, I hear you respond to all your emails. No, that's not true. I really try to keep up with them, but I've fallen behind on many. Like even before. Well, I've been very good about on the campaign, but even now I'm still woefully behind on ones prior to that, just because it just gets to be too time consuming. But I really want to reply to more. But even then, if you're just recommending a game to me, I might not respond to that. I do try to read all my emails though. That's the difference. And so it's saying how do you deal with emails that have nasty accusations towards you? Well, it depends on how. Like if I think it's like in good faith or not. Like I mean, if they're just like for example, I had one person that was upset when I did set up the begathon, accept the donations. They were saying like stop stealing from children, and I was saying that I wasn't trying to do that at all. And I timestamped the link in the begathon video where I say if you can't afford to donate, don't do it. You know, I don't want to exploit anybody. And they said like, well, they thought maybe I could have been more explicit about minors, but that totally changed their opinion and they apologized for. So great. I mean, so if somebody's coming at me with like a legitimate criticism, yeah, I'll respond. I'll try to respond to it. I mean, I guess they're saying nasty accusations. It depends how nasty. Like if they are just like cussing me out like every other sentence or getting really vile with the insults, yeah, I might not respond to that. I mean, because it's like, okay, this person isn't trying. They're not trying to like have any sort of resolution of this. They're just there to kind of be sort of a verbal punching bag or something. So it's like, no, I mean, I'm not promising to respond to any of the emails, though I really try to respond to a lot of them. And I feel bad for the people I put off a long time that sent me good emails that I'll eventually get to, I think. Okay, I'm skipping some questions that have been answered before or that are kind of vague. Or not vague, but like really broad. Let's see. Oh, somebody's saying, okay, I do not plan to do another series like Freeman's Mind. Sorry, I'd rather do something more like Game Dungeon or side videos or stuff more like Civil Protection or possibly Civil Protection again in the future. They're saying, will I be reviewing more Star Trek episodes? I don't have plans to, but it's not impossible. So something could kind of grab me. I do. That's one of the side videos. It's not about Star Trek, but the format of it is a lot like that Star Trek episode I did. So that I have planned. Have you been in game development? Not sort of. I mean, when I did Civil Protection, that's kind of the equivalent of making a full mod. I mean, because you're having to like have custom maps, custom animations, figuring out all these sequences that like within the source engine that worked. Like I had mod makers emailing me asking, how did you do that part where like I had like Dave let go of the radio or the parts in like the like on a rail. So you're doing like all these tricks. So it's pretty much everything short of programming and custom models. The models I would get help on though, because I edited textures, animation, did mapping, sound. So yeah, it's not exactly game development, but that's the closest I've come to it. Each Civil Protection episode is like a small mod. Like it really is. Interested to hear your advice and takes on game development. Oh man, advice, like good luck. You know that, like, and that must strikes me as so competitive. Like yeah, my advice. Yeah, I guess my advice, which I can see some people being insulted by, would be to try your best to have some fallback and do this more as like a passion project, that it's more for you and like people you know that or people you think might enjoy this. Hey, this is dumb luck, so it doesn't mean you'll have the same success, but that's how I started Civil Protection. I had zero intention of making any money from Civil Protection when I started it. I mean, so this is before you can monetize on YouTube, or this is before YouTube was really the place to upload videos. So, and it's just dumb luck that I ended up being able to make money from the videos later. But I would have kept making stuff similar, just not as frequent at a slower pace, you know. What advice would you give for trying to expand your gaming palette? Well, they're saying there's so many games out there. I feel like I played so few that I'm not sure where to start. Well, you can look at my games list on the website at kurtzfarms.com. But if that's too overwhelming, I guess just do some generic searches, like for best games to play, or best games for first timers, or something like that. And then you might get a list of, or ask on a forum or Reddit, and just see what you like. And then some of them you may not like the writing or the theme, but you like the gameplay or vice versa. And then you can kind of branch off from there. It shouldn't be hard to find lists like that. Games every gamer should play or something like that. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is not a bad question. One of the speculated reasons that publishers kill games is so the customers continuously buy and pay for the newest product, transferring the players of the old game into the new one. Yeah, again, if I had to guess, I think that's a minority of companies, but that probably is for a few of them. I think most of the time it's just negligence. They just don't care. If we achieve the goal of widespread game preservation, do you think that at some point there will be so many functional games available that the pool of players will be too split for newer multiplayer games to have healthy player bases? Will future games need to find ways to make up the players who choose to keep playing older titles? I think it's unlikely because a lot of people, if you look at buying habits, the majority, they go with the flow to whatever the new popular game is, or to whatever the big popular constantly maintained game is. So that it might be a game that's been around 10 years, but it's getting constant updates to make it fresh. Uh, and it's kind of the minority. And for the other stuff, they kind of fall by the wayside, where you might have like a cult following if the game was pretty good. If it was so, look, I'll be perfectly honest, and some people may see this as, outrageous. There's a real chance the majority of these games that we're trying to get saved, barely anyone plays. I'd say that goes double for multiplayer only games where they're just like arena shooters or something. However, I feel like if people paid the money for them, they should be able to play them, especially if it's like maybe they and their friends got into that game and they don't want to give it up. They like that game. I mean, why shouldn't they keep playing that game? So it's kind of, it's the long tail, where the majority are not, any one game, the majority people are not going to care about. But then over time, there's going to be some game that a minority of people care about that collectively stack up that this ends up affecting a large block of the demographics. However, even if most of it for any one individual game isn't that many, so it's the only sane way of doing it, in my opinion. But yeah, I wouldn't worry about that too much, because the new big games, they're going to have all the marketing, and most people are just going to go with whatever the marketing is. Like, I mean, I've seen concepts for like newer multiplayer games that looked, well, Helldivers 2, that looks like the sort of game I would be interested in. Or, let's see, some other ones. Okay, so I'm saying Game Dungeon never going to get PlayStation 1 games. Maybe if I felt like it was something worth covering, that I have something to say that others don't, but it's not top of my list. It's not my only decision in it, but and plus the thing is, I'm sort of inviting a little more trouble with PlayStation 1 games, because I don't like the PlayStation wobble. I would want to emulate the hell out of it for like every enhancement thing, and that's just going to drive people up the wall for some of them. We're the purists who want, no, this should be exactly how it looked back in like late 90s or something. So, but yeah, most of my game dungeons, I either want to have something that very few people have talked about, or else something where I feel like I'm saying something not everybody else is saying. So it's usually going to be one of those two things. Let's see. Oh yeah, okay. I should mention this. Yeah, they're talking about like the Nintendo shutdown. They're talking about Super Mario Maker. Yeah, they're asking if that qualifies as a dead game. I think it doesn't if you can play it offline, and that was the problem. I looked into like the Nintendo shutdowns, and I think their outlet in Europe was located in Germany. So then I talked to some of the volunteers researching on German law about this, and they said that they're not even sure this is a violation in Germany to shut down just the online stuff, but then the game itself still works. So we really needed that clean kill. So it could be you could complain to. Now, you might have a chance complaining to the ACCC in Australia, but in Europe, in the USA, we probably can't do anything. In Canada, we're probably not going to be able to do anything. UK, maybe, but since we're in such an uphill battle, it's probably better to have like a clean kill game where we don't have to explain like features of the game were disabled, because like lawmakers aren't going to get that in the same way. Yeah, so Australia, maybe. I don't know. Maybe you could file a complaint about that. Germany, it sounds like probably not. And since the Nintendo outlets in Germany, it's a big long shot. So I didn't make guides for it. That's why it really was. There really are reasons I picked The Crew to do this on, because I just didn't see a big game that checked all the boxes for how we could act on it prior to this. So, okay, should skip through some more questions. What do you think of space trading games like Elite? The learning curve discourages me on a lot of those games. And for me, the appeal of space games is kind of going off into the unknown. So if I'm doing a space game, I kind of want either weird space anomalies or weird alien civilizations, that sort of thing. If it's like just kind of space as we know it, that actually kind of turns me off unless it's a really cool plot to go with it. So, but yeah, typically it's the learning curve that discourages me. Plus, I'm not, well, I guess if it's a trading game, I could handle that. I was going to say, I'm not a great pilot, like with dogfighting and stuff like that, but trading game, you might not have to do that. Let's see. Oh, okay. You've talked before about potential apocalypse scenarios. Do you still think a green apocalypse, I hadn't heard that term, they're saying uninhabitable Earth, is the most likely doomsday scenario, or do you think another outcome is more likely now? Yeah, definitely. And then how we get there, there's what's more in question as to which gets us there the fastest. So that because nuclear war is always a wild card, but it could be global warming, it could be just ecological collapse just from development and toxins. So yeah, but no, I think that's easily or most likely doomsday scenario. I mean, maybe we get our act together enough to survive it as a species. I don't know enough to know if it's a foregone conclusion. So I'm not like full doomer that it's just a matter of time before it all happens. I think as the more we go on, the more we permanently lose some things, and that list keeps growing. But human race is relatively adaptable, so there's a lot of potential for us to keep a dystopia going. So, what was the last major purchase you made? It's a good question. Major purchase. Okay, so not like rent and food and yeah. I mean, at some point we're probably gonna need to get a new washer. But we haven't done. Ours is still limping along. It might actually have been my monitor. So yeah, that's that was a fun purchase. It's the ultra wide transition I got. That was kind of a splurge item I got. That was like a year or two ago that I got that. I got it like during when the inflation was like really starting to spike. And I was thinking, all right, I need to get this now before I don't know how expensive it's going to be in the future. But yeah, I mean that costs something, but I hope it lasts me a very long time. I have basically except for that weird software thing where it won't come back if VR is also enabled. So I need to hit a hotkey to disable it via software. But yeah, it's what? Yeah, no, I've no regrets on getting the ultra wide monitor, even if the pixel count is higher. So I had to drop performance in a lot of games, but. Okay, I'm going to skip a few more questions. Do you think the story of Far Cry 5 could happen in real life? Not on the scale it does. The where and unless you already had like a government collapse. Like law, the reach, yeah, the long arm of the law is too long for that. I mean, it's you can maybe have like a real small town where it happened, but I think even the one in Far Cry 5, it's too big, and things are too interconnected now. Because you would just have stuff like mail delivery that would start getting it, where they can't get in, or else they go in, they don't come back, and that would get reported to federal authorities. Yeah, I mean, it we're too interconnected now. It'd have to be a really small town. Uh, Here's someone pretending to be my mother. That is definitely not my mother. Or for all we know, maybe that's an AI. Okay, this person's saying it looks like gaming companies, especially big ones, have reached a critical mass as they're reaching a limit of creating good games and increasing their profit, leading to bad decisions across the board. Will indie games in the future, uh, will indie games be the future? Well, one, I don't believe that. Well, again, there's a lag time for me on AAA games. Well, I mean, wasn't everybody raving about Baldur's Gate 3? That's AAA, isn't it? Or what was another one that? Oh man, well, a lot of people are saying great things about Helldivers too, but that one might be what, double A or something. Um, I mean, I've been slowly, I had a months long disruption playing through Greedfall, and I think that one's probably double A. Though I'm not. I think the only thing that makes it double A is it's not fully open world. Like it kind of feels a lot like Mass Effect, just in a completely different setting. And like there's some small detail. I mean, Greedfall is a game that would be triple A if it was made years earlier. So, um, let's see. But yeah, I don't think that's the case. I mean, you could be. I think what you're probably talking about is like, what is the crap ratio of big mainstream published games that the money grabbing tactics are so extreme that it's like, and the gameplay isn't that good, that it's honestly starting to feel like this game just isn't worth it. I mean, but like this, eh, but I mean, every given year, the amount of games that look promising to me, it's a bit overwhelming. Even if a lot of them aren't like the most heavily marketed ones. Like I don't even know what the biggest marketed ones right now are. Like I have to get online to, or what are the best selling games? Well, here I'll just pull up Steam quick. Okay, let's see what's on the front page of Steam. Okay, Ghost of Tsushima, I don't know much about that one. I'm kind of samurai'd out. Hades 2, I think that one's more of a indie-ish. Okay, these are older games. Older games. Older games. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at ones that are like at least 4 years old. Are there any brand? Okay, the newer ones seem to be like indie ones. Yeah, so I don't even know what the big new games are. Uh, okay, yeah, so Steam was not a help there. Okay. Oh, so somebody's saying Ghost of Tsushima is 4 years old. Okay, so maybe it just came to PC recently. Well, anyway, to me, there's so much good stuff coming out any given year that so what if like the ratio of the most heavily marketed stuff isn't very good, so. Um, I mean, does this, and like for not PC, that doesn't Nintendo still make good games? Or I don't know. I'm not keeping up. But a lot of people like the, what was it? Tears of the. They both like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, from what I heard. So, oh yeah, I heard Final Fantasy 16 is really good. That's currently a PlayStation exclusive, isn't it? So, yeah, it's the good games are still out there. You may have to hunt a little more for them. Okay, I'm gonna skip more because this has been going on a while. I'll just see if there's any big ones I really want to answer here. Uh, okay, I didn't see this one. They're saying a screenshot from one of my videos they wanted a background on. Oh, they can't tell. What? Okay, somebody did a. They drew a wine glass in my hand or something. They want a clarification. That's well, that's like what you see right there. That's just a sort of a blanket there that's there for muffling sound and reducing echo and reverberation stuff. I have the walls lined with those wherever I can kind of put them. So it absolutely makes a difference in dampening sound. So yeah, sound curtain. Someone's saying they're 6 feet tall, strong, slightly wide, low endurance, probably not fast. Have fighting experience and goes to the gym regularly. Can I defeat them in combat? Probably not fat. Well, you might. I mean, if I could, and low endurance, yeah. I mean, if I'm willing to see now that I know that, I might be able to exploit it. So, I have very high endurance, so I could just kind of keep bait. I could kite you in real life, maybe, until I wore you down, or just roll the dice and hope I could attack you fast enough to bring you down before. But if you have fighting experience, I may not get past you. So, yeah, the safest thing I could do would be to just essentially real life kite you until you got exhausted. But yeah, well, we're the same height. But yeah, if you might have more fighting experience than I do. Yeah, if you're going to the gym regularly, you probably have more upper body than I do. So, which tends to count more in a fight. And okay, skipping some more stuff. Oh, so I was talking about for the GUI video. Oh, he uses a screenless pen tablet instead of a mouse. I'll talk about that when I eventually get a GUI follow-up video. I haven't really tried it, but that could be quite good. Let's see. I did not get to see the magnetic storm. I've heard that they're predicting even bigger solar flares, like as big as the Carrick one, maybe in July of 2025. I think it was NASA saying that. So fingers crossed it misses us or we don't have a new Dark Ages. If I could learn one programming language, what would I choose and why? Well, I don't know enough about programming to pick one, make an educated guess. But if I had to guess, I'd probably say Python, which I've had to dabble with scripts of on a very limited basis. I've heard that's the most adaptable. So I would want something that's probably very easy to implement or learn, and for few specialized things. Let's see. Yeah, whatever the most rookie practical language is. All right, so you can ask live questions. Do at Ross Broadcast in the chat, so I hopefully see it. I'll try to answer a few before I go. Oh, I say somebody's saying Elden Ring for AAA. Yeah, it was like, what, a year or so now? I've lost track of years. Have you tried playing any VR outside? No, I have a corded VR. Any thoughts about that? Well, as long as you have a setup, it could be pretty good actually. As long as you had like a field, that's marked off with barriers. Yeah, I have heard of Abiotic Factor, but I haven't played it. What search engine do you usually use? It depends on what I'm searching for. I was using Google for the most part, but I've heard more reports it's getting worse. I don't know what's the best thing to use now for just generic searches. Do you ever regret buying some games years after release if the game receives updates that change the core experience? Yeah, The Crew. the lighting, it was a side grade on Wild Run for compared to the original, and I feel like the original looked better on average from the comparison videos I've seen. The original looked better on average, and then Wild Run looks better in some cases, and then much worse in others. So it's kind of like it kind of skewed everything. Let's see. Okay, sorry, I'm scrolling up here. Okay. Thoughts on the FTC non-compete clause ban? Good. Let's see. That probably affects people at like a higher income demographic, I would think. But I mean, maybe not. I mean, then there might be some low-level like clerk jobs where that was not compete just because the companies say they can, or just to kind of keep you constrained. Do you have any contingencies if Craig is unavailable if you restart Civil Protection? No, I'd probably have a big open audition. Try whoever sounds the closest to him. But I think he's still good for more videos. So. How do you feel about makeup? Have you ever tried it or wanted it? Have you ever played Sonic versus Darkness? If not, do you want to look it up? I haven't even heard of Sonic versus Darkness. I mean, if I was going to play a new Sonic game, it would probably be Sonic Colors. That one seemed kind of intriguing. And I got a taste of it from Sonic Generations. What? Oh, yeah, from makeup. I've almost never used it. However, I did use it, like, actually, I think last year when my face was having such a skin reaction, it looked like half of my face was, like, sunburned to the extreme. It was, like, raw. This was after... short version is, like, it looked bad. And I almost shouldn't tell you which video I appeared on for that. Like, maybe you can kind of guess. But I did find makeup for that, and that masked it enough. I was like, okay, good, because this was just like extreme levels to the point where it might have been like distracting, So it was just like the most. It was like the most raw red, and like almost like a mask shape around me. It did not look good. So that was one of the only times I've used it though. What's your go-to place for wallpapers? Well, I kind of, that's kind of an ongoing project. I harvested a whole ton from DeviantArt that I just need to sort of convert and upscale. Then I have a supply for a long time. But I mean, could be better ones, especially since I need to adapt them more for ultra wide now. Have you tried leaning more into the consumer rights angle of the campaign? as that seems to appeal more to the common gamer than having access indefinitely. Oh yeah, 100%. I'm not even trying to appeal to the common gamer. I mean, not really. I'm trying to appeal to lawmakers with that argument. So yeah, it's been like 98% of the arguments for making it is like on consumer rights issue. So. Do you ever get the days when you feel like there's nothing to play? No, never. Like I've what sometimes happens though is I'm not interested for like the couple games I have installed, and there's too much of a what? Yeah, sorry, chat's paused though. It's too much of a like thought work to install new games, see if it news patches, configure it at that time. So that'll just kind of get postponed until later. Or you have the learning curve for it. So some games can kind of get, so some games I'm not ready for at that moment, but no, there's always something I'm looking forward to, but like it just doesn't. Or if I'm not really in the mood to play games, that means I probably need to go exercise or like work on something, that sort of thing. But no, not like, oh, there's not a game to play. Like it's like a constant. Like I just want to catch up on many more. That tends to be my overwhelming feeling like most days. So and it's only been more pronounced during this campaign where I just had. It's only like this past week I've had any time at all for games for like months. This campaign just took up everything. So, and even then, I'm still behind on Game Dungeon, and there's still plenty I need to do on the campaign. So it's like that's kind of coming at the expense of other stuff. So I'm sorry, but it's yeah, I'm in a drought right now. So. Oh, favorite gun from video games. Well, it's hard to say, but a couple favorites are from the Painkiller Battle Out of Hell expansion. One was like this split bolt gun that would pin people to the wall, and then the alternate fire sent like this, like dozens of flechette rounds that would bounce and then explode. It's like, man, that gun covered so many situations. I also like in the original Jedi Knight the sticky rockets. You could have fun with those. There's probably some more I'm not thinking of, but okay. Law student in Brazil, very interested in the lawsuit. Would you make the docket available to the public to follow? Oh, I won't be running the lawsuit directly. That's through somebody else who's also a lawyer, hiring another lawyer to handle the lawsuit. So whatever they say is, I'm kind of deferring to the local intelligence in most aspects of this. So if they say yes, sure. Right now, feel free to spread the word about StopKillingGames.com because we could use more survey results as to who owned the crew in any capacity. Do mosquitoes tend to bother you on your runs or hikes? How do you deal with them? Not so much now, but I sure as hell don't like them. I mean, you can get bug repellent if it's pretty bad. Like if I knew, yeah, like when we were visiting somewhere in the east, like there were mosquitoes all over the place. So yeah, I think we did end up using bug repellent for that. Have you encountered any magical foxes during your jogs? Nope, just standard ones. They've all been at a distance for the most part. You heard of Gary Stevens. He's an economist from an ordinary background and became... I think I did see a couple clips of that, actually. Is that a British guy? Campaigner against inequality after making millions, betting the economy would get worse. Yeah, I think I've seen a clip or two of his. A lot of what you say addresses issues raised about our current capitalism. Yeah, well, the thing about capitalism is it's kind of like, if you see problems with it, it's kind of like being in the Middle Ages and saying, hey, I think we should do some, I think maybe we shouldn't have a monarchy. We should have a different system. Good luck. you know, I mean, it's just because you can see problems, it doesn't mean the forces behind it are so incredibly powerful that it's, the only alternative I see is just kind of going up, is basically intentional communities. And then you better get used to doing a hell of a lot of farming. So I don't know which, okay, I'm not enough of an expert on, well, I guess not even an expert is the word, educated enough on metal to know which one is new metal. So, okay, how do you like System of a Down Disturbed outside of their singles? Yeah, okay, so that helps explain it to me. They're not my favorite. I mean, I don't hate it, but it's, I don't know, something about it just like it doesn't have, they don't have the same sort of either melodies that I like or sort of like same punch that I like from other kind of metal, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I don't hate them. It's just there's definitely other metal bands I'd rather listen to. The squirrels in Europe still dig through trash near the cities. They might, but I haven't seen them. It's boars that are like that come into the city and just dig up everything here. Amusement parks or water parks? I like both. They're both way up there for me. So, okay, Sonic vs. Darkness is a fan game I should check out. Okay, I can maybe look into that. Yeah, I learned recently there was a fan remake of what is it? It was an old Game Boy Castlevania game. I think it was like, here I can figure it out. I downloaded it. It was a fan download. One of the Castlevania ones, Castlevania Legends, and they basically made it look like to have Super Nintendo-ish graphics. So I'm thinking, awesome. I want to try that. Yeah, I was thinking, that's another use of AI I was thinking of. You could maybe take like Game Boy games and have the AI process it to try to give it like, Super Nintendo-ish graphics and take its best guess. I bet with enough input, AI could do a decent job on that. But again, I don't know of any AI that can do that right now, or maybe it's maybe it's too much processing power to do that in real time. But even then, it could kind of propose tile sets or something that you could like hack a ROM with to use, that sort of thing. And I lost my chat window. How did that happen? There it is. Okay. But yeah, there's like 100 things like that I'm waiting on AI to solve. So yeah, well, we talked about the Wayfinder situation. Thoughts on players who bought Founders Access Packs requirements to play before the original free-to-play, calling the devs scammers for not just shutting the game down 100%. Listen, this is sour grapes. You got to play the game early. Yes, it sucks that you didn't know that. But two things. One, I'm in your camp because I bought the crew before it went free to play. And if I had known it had gone free to play, I would have waited for that. So, that's a risk that that you're taking. But the point is, you're not deprived of your game. It's just that you didn't get to maximize your advantages the way somebody who waited until it was free to play did. So, yeah, I mean, I noticed that's that's apparently like a real major thing in psychology that I think I don't have for the most part, where like if say you have a good thing, but then somebody else doesn't have the good thing, that your enjoyment of the good thing depends on others not having the good thing. And to me, it's like, I don't care as long as I have the good thing. It's like, well, if others have it, great. Now if there's like a real tangible reason, because like if there are side consequences that there are other benefits you're missing out because of that, I can understand. Like, like this isn't that big a deal. Like for me, like with Game Dungeon, I was like maybe the only person to make a extensive video on like BitBop 2 and the first that I know of uncovering BitBop 3. Okay, well that means I get more views and it adds to the allure of making the video on it. But so that's like that's a separate thing that I get the benefit of that. But I shared the game for everybody to play. It's not like I'm against others making the video, but that's more like being first. I can understand that. But, well, even then, the people complaining about that, they would have been first, not the people getting it for free, or not the people getting the game. Oh, okay, I might be misunderstanding. Did they buy the game and then they don't get access to the newer version? They have to rebuy it? If that's the case, I can understand them being pissed. And if they don't get an end-of-life plan, they're totally justified. Okay, I might have misunderstood that. So they didn't have the resources. So yeah, if they're going to be reselling it without compensating the people who already bought it, yeah, okay. I can see that because yeah, that is kind of scammy. But if the people who bought it were compensated and they can get the new copy, I mean, come on. Or yeah, or maybe if like they deducted the amount of money you spent on it towards the full copy, I could see that being like, let's say it was I don't know the story on Wayfinder, but let's say it was microtransactions, so you spent $10 on it, and then so the new game you don't get $10, you don't get the full game, but you get $10 off. That would be fair-ish. But it's still a little scammy, But hey, what we're doing should help solve that, because then you'll either have an end of life plan or you'll have an expiration date if we're successful. So you won't have these kinds of messes so much. You'll be much more informed as a buyer. So, or much more protections. But if it's just the concept of people, you had your thing and now more people can have it under better conditions, yeah, it kind of sucks, but it's like, see, I see that more as like, oh, they got me. And you're also discounting you having access first. But no, I really have heard about that it seems huge enough and evidence enough of it that a lot of people do think like that they don't enjoy their thing unless somebody else is being deprived of it. And to me, that's like alien. Like, I don't know. Like, that's not how I roll. So it's just, now if I'm being deprived of my thing and others get it, then yeah, I understand being upset over that, because then it comes at my loss. But that actually might be a fatal flaw for humanity, because it means we'll never be able to get our act together, because too significant a portion of the populace is going to want to make life miserable for others. Because maybe the thing you have is food and shelter and clean water. So, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, okay, I missed some more things. Have you been interested in trying game randomizers? Maybe. It just depends on the game. Like if it makes me look at it in a really novel way, I might, but I can't think of any off the top of my head that like, oh, I'd really want a randomizer for this. I think maybe the thing I kind of want more of is, well, this is like one of the reasons I stopped playing Path of Exile, was I was so familiar with, okay, well, I missed some questions. I'll check them in a second. I was so familiar with like the layout of the maps that I just like, no, I'm sick of this. I want like this map tile set, but like the layout like really randomized. Like, so I don't know what this landscape's gonna, because if you look at Minecraft or something, you can have a pretty wide variety of the terrain. you're not gonna. There's not gonna always be a mountain on the right. There's not gonna be always a stream at this location and stuff like that. So let's see. Could you show your character level in Path of Exile? I had one that made it to 100, and I regret that. I shouldn't have done that. I should have stopped around 97, 98. That would have been, well, really, if I wanted to be wise, I should have just played through acts 1 through 10 and then just stopped. That would have been, and then just watch playthroughs of like the stuff past that. That would have been the wise decision. So. Yeah, well, that was one character. Yeah, that was with the Necromancer before it got kind of nerfed more. So, but even then, I was doing stuff like you had the what was it, the Chayula runs, or what was the name of that other one? Where you can kind of bunch together the. Yeah. I kind of resent how much I played Path of Exile. So, I mean, even then, I'm nothing compared to like some players. So, but like this, I've never found a mirror, or I've never had enough wealth for a mirror. So that could give you an idea of how serious a player I am. So, well, did I enjoy the map system at least? Not exactly, because I have to like stop and think so much about how I want to tweak it, and then the maps are limited. So if I'd rather have something where I could kind of like steer the environment more and not have it be like single use or something. I mean, now with my character, it's easy to get maps for free, but or just leftovers, you know. And somebody's saying, 100 level Path of Exile. That's over the time span of like 6 years or maybe more. So. Okay. That's too many questions about Path of Exile. Let's get these other questions in it. Here's a comic on the Middle Ages. I think I know which. Yeah, I've seen that one. It's just, whatever. Do you consider the band trance music heavy metal? I guess I don't know trance. I mean, I know trance music. I don't know the band trance. So. Yeah, look at this. I can't read the word because of the friggin' icons. Okay, here, I'll just copy it. What does this say? What would you say is the best place on your forums to post longer question or thoughts on the campaign? Geez. I never really set it up for that. I don't know. Probably a general discussion, maybe. Yeah, I guess I should have given it its own section. Maybe mods can post, can set up a new segment for it, and then we can just slowly start moving threads into it. So yeah, mods, you have my full permission to do that. Or maybe I'll get to it. I've not played Total Distortion, but that's one I'm curious about. I remember the cover with the guy, with the headphones on either side. What would you say is the best place? Oh, yeah, okay. Read that. I want you to see Niagara Falls. Well, I mean, it would be neat, but, it's real travel is expensive. Yeah, I've seen that comic before. Okay, correction. Okay, Wayfinder. What's the most modern band you would say is a must listen? I have no idea. I'm way behind. Shoot. I heard some soundtracks that were good. Here, let me see. I think I had some notes. I mean, so this wouldn't really be a band. This would just be soundtracks. I tend to listen to soundtracks more. Downloads, music. Okay. Some of these were from older movies. Okay, I have to check it out again. Apparently, I thought the music to the Jungle Cruise movie had some redeeming qualities, but that's probably not a home run either. So I must have heard something I liked in it. That's recent-ish. Okay. Okay, so they do get access to the new version. Yeah, so there's just no. I mean, if that's a core personality or humanity trait, I don't know what to say about the depriving others. That, like, you know, if somebody else has something easier than you did, but you still have the benefit, like it's because it could be a little different. Like for like a job market, like let's say you had to go through like a 4-year degree and then you're saddled with debt from that, and then somebody else gets the job and they don't have to do all that, and then they get ahead because they had a head start and they're promoted. Well, see, then it kind of feels like systematically that's coming at your expense that they're doing that. But for a game, I mean, what? How does that deprive you? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, yeah, you would have. I mean, yeah, you would have waited if they known they were going to do that, but it's just, it seems so minimal. You know, I mean, if you didn't like the game, you probably had your window to return it. So if you enjoyed the game, you know, I don't think that really set you back. It's just, and if it wasn't worth the money to you, you probably wouldn't have bought it in the first place. So or you know, worth the risk of it. Okay, use guides for Path of Exile. Absolutely. Okay, wait, there's a longer question because, man, I would not want to try. Look, that you have to. Path of Exile is a game where it's very easy to fall off a cliff for how much time that game expects you to invest in it, and it feels like work too, at least for me. So I don't like that aspect of it. I mean, no, I would not recommend any casual person play that game without a guide to the character. Because you might think, oh, I'm just going to figure it out and, like, you know, amplify the damage this way. No, you're not. No, you're not. Like, not for the high end and stuff. Like, unless you're, what's it called? Like, lore crafting? No, not lore crafting. I forget what theory crafting, I think. Unless that's your thing, like you love all these really complicated mechanics and figure out how they interact with them. Yeah, I mean, if you enjoy that, then sure, go ahead. But man, if you don't, then don't even try. Like, there are people who spend their lives on this, and and the later game is kind of balanced for that crap, you know. So yeah, okay, this is more about. Okay, Trance is very famous for '80s album Heavy Metal Queen. Okay, I guess I don't know. I probably have heard it, but then don't know the band name. A lot of music can be like that with me. What is your opinion on games being dead depending on regions, country? Yeah, okay, I'll try to answer this, then close it out. It's a bit of a catch-22 because the reason we're able to do as much as we have is because some countries have laws we can act on. And the games that are probably being killed in specific countries aren't going to have very powerful laws to be able to do much on this. So there's not really any maneuverability there. However, it's the same, like I mentioned, if we can get one major victory, that's more likely to preserve it for others. So most of what we're doing, however, probably won't kick in until it's dead in a major country that this would impact, which means it's probably dead everywhere. So yeah, it's, I can, just region locked dead games, it creates a muddier situation. Unless that country has very strong consumer laws, but that's probably not where they're killing the games. So yeah, it's a kind of a catch-22 that, you know, you can't, that, you know, if the game's being killed, then you should have, then you should be able to take legal action to destroy it. But because it's in a country where you can't really take the legal action to destroy it, that's why it's being killed there. So, you know. All right, I'm going to go eat. Thanks for this went on too long. Thanks for showing up. Check back on the 27th for big news on the campaign. Like, it's either going to be disappointing or else mind-blowing good, is my prediction. So I'll leave it at that. All right, see ya.